Hello, 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 and welcome to the Badabinshow. We are back, and I am one of your hosts, Dave, and down there in the bottom square is my pal and partner in crime, Chris. Chris, how
Hey,
are
hey.
you, amigo? What is going on?
Oh boy, what isn't going on? Well, first off, apologies for any kind of ambient noise that comes out of my side of the screen. We've got some construction going on downstairs. When we had the house built, we had a little office placed in the middle of the house that my wife used, and then she graduated into a bigger office that we had built. So we have this empty, well, it's not really empty. It just collects all of our garbage, really.
Okay.
Like like that area in your house when you walk in and you just put stuff,
Sure, yeah, everybody, it's like,
and
yeah.
then like weeks and months go by and it's like, oh, that's still there. Well, this little room has become that for us. So we're doing something about it. The thing of it was is this room had a window
Uh-huh.
like into the living room. So it's like it's right smack in the middle of the house. There's a doorway and a window.
Okay.
And we wanted to close up the window, so that's what we're doing today. And so if there's a lot of what we couldn't figure out the word for the air powered thing.
Pneumatic?
Pneumonic?
Pneumatic?
Pneumatic. I think that might be it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
I was actually going to say to you, most people don't have a room for their junk. They either have a form of exercise equipment. I
mhm,
know
they just hang stuff on it. Yeah.
exactly. That's the elliptical
Hmm.
machine in my living room where we put like the dog's harness and stuff like that for
Hmm.
some reason.
Hmm.
Even though we do have like a coat rack that's
Hmm.
perfectly fine and assigned for such articles and items, alas,
It's you take your socks off, you lay them over the handlebars. It's yeah,
well,
it's just where stuff winds
yeah.
up.
You trying to tell me you have a bunch of your underwear and socks laying around in that room downstairs where someone is currently hammering away?
No, no, I emptied it out.
Okay.
It's all clean. It's all clean. That was about 45 minutes of my morning was emptying that room out.
Okay.
So we're in there now.
Yeah.
We're in there now. But I also wanted to apologize for no show last week. That was all my fault. Uh, every once in a while, I need a reminder that I'm very hard to live with, and there's fallout from that needs to be dealt with, and that's kind of what it's been. Feel really bad. I haven't put anything out.
Hmm.
I haven't put a show out. I haven't put blog post out. I haven't done anything really. Been very disconnected. You've been filling me in on some comic news, and it's like, huh? Because I totally missed out on Pretend to Care About Comics Week in San Diego. So I don't know anything that was going on there except for what you filled me in on.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like one of those what is it, defrosted cavemen. Like I'm coming out of the cave and it's like, whoa, okay, DC's Bullet's back,
Hmm.
huh? Weird stuff like
All
that.
right.
So yeah, I've been away. I've been off the grid. Feel bad about it, but
Come on,
yeah,
relax,
what
man.
can you
Take
do?
it easy. Sometimes you just gotta do you. You know what I mean? Real life is
It's
real
weird,
life.
because it's true. It's true. It's weird because like I did like 2,500 days in a row of putting something out, whether it be a blog post and a podcast, anything.
Sure.
2,500 days, and it's weird how much easier it is to fake it when you're writing. You don't have to deal with your mood and anything else going on. You could just write.
Yeah.
You write around it, and there's no real. I mean, there is a tone of voice, of course, but it's not a actual oral tone of voice.
Hmm.
Um, but when you're recording, it's hard to hide just the rotten crap that's going on, and your bad mood, and it's hard to perform. Though I wouldn't call anything I do a performance. It's hard to perform the act of putting out a show.
Yeah, I would think writing is a little bit more therapeutic because you could do it in the underwear
Sure.
from your spare room. You could, I mean, you don't have to
Hmm.
physically show up somewhere and show your face. So,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of an easier thing to accomplish
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
chewing the fat with moi. You know what I mean?
Or just even just talking to myself on Animal
Mm.
Crossing. Just it's hard to I don't know, get past it.
It's all right, man. You're here now. That's what
I am.
matters, okay? You are here right this minute. And I'm so happy to have
Word.
you here. And you mentioned some of the news from SDCC.
Hmm. Hmm.
You are Steve Rogers. You are
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
man out of time because you've been
I
off the
am.
grid, you know what I mean? And you missed out on all
Hmm.
this information. Although, most of that
Hmm.
information you would not give two turds about because it's all based
Yeah.
around the cinematic universes of the big
But
two.
wait, but wait, it's a Comic Con.
Surprise.
What? Wait
That's
a
how
minute.
they
Every
get you.
time I say that Comic-Con's not about comics anymore, I get yelled at for being an old man.
Well, you know.
And wrong.
Okay.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes you are wrong. I would never yell at you. That's not how I approach things, especially in my
Hmm.
older years. I'm much more of a, copacetic kind of talk it out kind of guy.
Sure.
So I wouldn't scream at you. But
Hmm.
I must admit that the thing that got me the most excited from any of this news that
Hmm.
I kept you abreast of was what you
Hmm.
alluded to earlier, and it was in fact
Hmm.
comic related news, the return of a beloved icon that both you and I discussed a couple
Hmm.
episodes ago. And yes, Chris,
It's true.
dreams indeed come true if you wait them
Hmm.
out
There it
and you
is.
wish hard enough. There you go, baby. The DC Bullet is back in the corners of your favorite DC comics. How does this make you
Hmm.
feel?
I like it as a gesture for
Okay.
sure, because the current one isn't terrible,
Mm-hmm.
but we were actually talking about this before with the not on the air, but I got all excited. I don't know how excited you got,
Mm.
but when DC was like, "Hey, we're doing legacy numbering now," I was like, "Oh, I love that idea."
Mm-hmm.
And then they did it for like 2 months, and then they changed their corner box to look like, I called it a pill.
Yeah.
Like it's got the DC logo and another logo underneath it, and
Right.
just like the number in between it.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it was more like an app thing, and I think you're right. Like a swipe,
Yeah, like
sort
a
of
little
like opening
slider.
this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it definitely looks like that. Um, so I'm glad to see that go away because I thought that made the books look incredibly cheap. DC's past few logos have just looked cheap. The sticker one looked like
Yeah, that was
garbage.
bad.
The swoopy one with the stars was okay, but it just made it look second rate.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about a clean and iconic logo that is timeless and shouldn't be messed with. And I'm really glad that it's back. Um, I think it's going to evoke uh, nostalgia for an era of DC Comics that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, and will never come back.
Mm-hmm.
A time where stories and continuity mattered more. Can't say it mattered 100% because it never did, but more than it does now. Like we've talked about with all the imprints, all the boutique little side gigs for everybody. It's like what's real, what's not. Everything's real, everything's not.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do? So I like it as a gesture. I'm gonna like seeing it on the covers of the books again. But I hope it's more than just a superficial thing. I hope it's maybe a callback to a better time.
Well, I think it's more, as you just aptly stated, nostalgia
Yeah,
rules the
that's it.
day here because most people who buy comics or an abundance of comics, I would think, would be of our vintage, and
Yeah, and older.
and
Yeah.
that's when we all started collecting because this was the Milton Glaser
Hmm.
design logo from the '70s, the later
Yeah.
'70s there, and
Yeah, to the 80s, 90s, to almost 30 years, yeah, 25
it,
years.
it
Yeah.
has some staying power, sure. And
Yeah.
for all of us, when we started our collecting journey,
Hmm.
that was the logo, and that's where
That's,
the iconic status
yeah.
comes from. And I love it. I think it's perfection,
Hmm.
really.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what that side of the table looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a Marvel kid, and you knew the bullet. And that was the other side of the table,
Right.
and it was special. It was iconic, and yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a bad thing that it's back
Yeah. Well, I say bring back corner
or coming
boxes.
back.
Bring back the whole
Oh,
enchilada.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
No, because like even like Marvel's logo sucks.
Mm.
Like Marvel, like the '90s logo is a little '90s-ish, with like a little script. But the one it's just like an impact font in a red box. Looks like garbage.
Well,
Doesn't look cheap, but it looks like
right.
garbage.
As far as Marvel goes, I would say I'm most nostalgic for that large M with the script that you're talking about from the
Oh
early
yeah,
'90s. 'Cause
me too.
it went
Me
from
too.
just a straight black Marvel on top
Yeah.
into that, and I was like, wow, all right, this has
Hmm.
some pizzazz, this has some moxie, baby.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then as far as the Bullet logo too, many fans will recall they didn't have corner boxes like Marvel did. They usually just
No.
had that stamp, that Bullet logo in the corner. Some titles did eventually adapt that corner box with the
Yeah.
characters in them.
Hmm.
One thing was DC in particular always had the full character, while Marvel would often just have heads.
Just heads.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And man, this just making me feel good talking about it. Holy moly! So you know what, DC? Thank you. Thank you so much, because no matter what the intentions were behind it, truly and honestly, you've created a discussion that I'm having with one of my great friends that's making me feel all the warm and fuzzies just over a friggin' logo for a corporate giant,
Right?
an evil
It doesn't
corporation.
take much.
Yeah,
It doesn't take much for us,
I'm
does it?
telling you,
Yeah.
man. And before we started live streaming today, you did a little digging, and I was hoping to
Mhm.
surprise you during this live stream because speaking of the impetus behind the DC Bullet's return, we just covered how you do not care for the films. This is something that we have talked about in depth in the past, but
Oh yeah.
it seems that that was the origin for the comics adapting the Bullet logo yet again starting this October. Is that DC Studios, the movie making machine for Time Warner of the DC properties, decided to
hmm
use the Bullet as their logo, or at least it was announced
hmm
that way first for DC Studios.
Sure.
You know,
And I can only hope they keep making movies that it's cheaper to put on a shelf than actually put in theaters.
really. Okay.
Oh yeah. Until they go away.
Yeah. Well,
That's just
there's a lot of excitement around it. I know it's not your bag. I am not 100% into the films, but I am far, far more amiable to watching them and seeing them than you
Mhm.
are, obviously. So,
Oh yeah. No, I would be if they fixed things, but
what do you want them to fix,
they're not
man? What
interested.
What do you need fixed?
I want more synergy. I want more synergy. I want the movies to sell comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be someone who can say I don't watch the movies and have people look at me going like, why not? What's wrong with you? But when people go to see the movies, like, hey, you read the comic, they're like, "Pfft, it's a one-way street.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Give it right back to them.
And
That's what you got to do. You
yeah,
didn't see the movies? Have you read the comic? Ah, come on. Give them that dirty look.
yeah.
That's what you need to do.
I'm sure I do, is the thing.
There you go. Yeah, sure.
Can't control my face all the
Yeah,
time.
no, this is also true. I know I have a lot of issues with that myself, and that can get me into some serious hot water. Let me tell you.
It can. It can.
Still, this October, the DC Bullet is back. We are very, very happy for it. And,
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering, actually, what generations would be miffed over such a decision. Like, maybe there is someone who is having some positive vibes over that terrible sticker or the star logo that you had mentioned, because
I
that's when they got
I
into
don't
it.
think any I think our generation and those older than us are the only ones invested enough in this sort of a thing to worry about it.
Mm. Well, also the
Yeah, and,
aesthetics.
and we're also the generations now I remember like years ago and maybe even today
Hmm.
where like every time Facebook would do an update,
Sure.
everybody would hate it instinctively. It's like, oh, it's garbage. It was perfect before. And then 3 months later, when they change it again,
Hmm.
these same people will be like, it was perfect before. It's like, but you bitched about it 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of the world. It's like anything that gets changed, it's going to be like, well, it was perfect before. It's just such knee-jerk garbage that we get
True,
now.
but symmetry is beauty, my friend. And as far as logos go, I think the Bullet is, and I use the word aesthetic, aesthetically
hmm
pleasing
Oh, yeah,
compared to the other ones. So if you
absolutely.
can put your feelings aside for whatever era that you started collecting or you remember the most
Hmm.
fondly, I think we can all admit the DC Bullet is just the most beautiful, well presented logo that they've ever had. You know?
I'd say so.
So
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. So yeah.
A- And this also is going to give DC like the opportunity to reprint everything all over again.
Just to put the
So
Bullet
we're
logo
gonna
on the side
just
of
to
a
put the bullet
trade
on the
or
logo, yep,
whatever.
on the cover of a trade or on the side of it. Yeah,
Oh wow, man.
that's what's going to happen. I'm sure of it.
Well, yeah, eventually. I didn't even think of it like that, to be honest with you.
Oh, I mean, that's like every time like the remember like the DC Vertigo logo would change. Like it would just sometimes we would just say DC Comics slash Vertigo. Sometimes it had like a V. Then
Hmm.
sometimes it would be like the full word Vertigo.
Sure.
Every time they changed that, they had to re-release everything. So it's like, oh, Sandman again, Doom Patrol again. It's like over and over and over again just to get the new logo, just so your bookshelf looks, symmetry.
Yeah.
Just so your bookshelf
Uniform.
looks as aesthetic as possible. Yeah.
Hey, man. I can dig it. As far as not having being sold books you don't need, but I mean, I can dig it as far as, hey, let's get that logo everywhere, other than
Oh
your
yeah.
coffee mug. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have a Bullet T-shirt that I had made specifically for me. And now I feel ripped off because I was the only person walking around with such a shirt, and I thought I was, hey, look at me, I'm unique, I'm cool. Who's a bigger fan than
You're
me?
not patient zero
No,
anymore.
now
Yeah.
the merch is going to be out there, and forget about it. You know what I mean? I'm going to look like just any
You
average
went to Walmart.
run of the mill schmuck. That's me, right here. So yeah, I would like to know what anybody out there who's watching thinks about the switch of the logo. And if you do have opinions
Absolutely.
on it, you can feel free to reach us, badabinshow@gmail.com. But that's not all, because you can tell us anything that you feel the need to. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? If you want to know what the contractor in Christopher's house is wearing, ask
Mm-hmm.
us. That's cool, man.
Sure.
We want to
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Yep.
yeah, let's
How's the weather where you're at?
you is hot.
Oh,
You know, it's Arizona. That's all you need to know. It is hot. I had someone come up to me this week and was like, "Hey,
mm-hmm.
I'm applying for a manager position in Arizona." And I'm like, "Well, prepare
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You know, it's going to be hot as hell." And he's like, "I can't be any worse than here." I'm like, "Let me introduce you to my friend Chris. He'll give you the real deal on that whole thing there, and it is
Oh
hotter than
yeah.
hell, man. Holy moly!"
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. We always get but it's a dry heat. A dry 120 degrees is
it's
not
still
pleasant.
hot. It's just hot.
It's not pleasant.
Yes. So, Chris, you know, last week we were unable to fulfill our obligation to the
Mm-hmm.
Badabinians
Mm-hmm.
out there in the free world, which I feel bad about, but we did have
Mm-hmm.
some things in the works because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do. We
Mm-hmm.
plan, we think ahead. We're trying. I know this whole live stream thing is kind of just freewheeling. You know, we're just riffing, having a good old
Sure.
time here,
Just cutting it
cutting it
up.
up, baby,
Yeah.
bebopping and scatting. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have some
Mm-hmm.
segments that we want to introduce to the audience. Now, that being said, we have discussed in the past how things that we cherished as children or earlier on in our collecting journey may have had a certain impact on us. Now, one of the segments we'd like to do is the sweet spot books, where we might bring up a book that has specific importance to us, symbolism for whatever reason, and makes us happy to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the items that we kind of more vaguely remember, liking or
Sure.
not liking, maybe for whatever reason? What if we revisit those stories? What if we come back and check them out today? Like, I know in my case, when I was 20 years old and I had disposable income and I'm buying books, I was a completely different human being than I am today. I mean,
Sure.
tonally, everything, my attitude, my family, you name it, everything about me is different. So, would my taste change? And this is a question that we wanted to pose to ourselves. With that,
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to try some books that, yet again, whether we remember them fondly or thought they were poor, give them another shot and just see how they fare today. Now, I took this challenge. I dug in by not digging, you see,
Mm-hmm.
because long boxes are extremely heavy. And I,
They can be.
if I didn't mention, am extremely old. Don't want to hurt my back, baby. Just don't want to do it. So I took the easy way out and reached over to my shelf and grabbed the trade that I recently bought and said, here it is. That's a ticket, because this sucker is 20 years old and I remember it being pretty gosh darn good. But was it? Was it, Chris?
Hmm.
What book am I talking about? I'm a huge Hulk fan. After Peter David's incredible run on, pun intended, the Hulk, we got John Byrne. But after John Byrne, we get a little Paul Jenkins, who
Mm-hmm.
did a storyline they call here, which doesn't make up the entire trade. There are some other issues involved. Dogs of War. Now, Chris, before I continue on about my reread
Sure.
of this story, do you have any memories of this era from the Hulk?
I don't have any specific memories. I do remember liking it. That was like Paul Jenkins was like the great rescuer around that time.
Okay.
Like we had that awful Burn run, and he saved us from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also took over Peter Parker's Spider-Man from Howard Mackie and Byrne. So like he was just rescuing these properties that were just in the doldrums, written like they were like three generations removed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like I talk about the Denny O'Neil Asriel stuff during NML Crossing, feeling like it's like these books are turn of the century, but Asriel is like 1984. You know, the Hulk, the Byrne Hulk set it back real far, I think, and the Mackie Byrne Spider-Man was just like FEMA should have been called, just pure tragedy.
Yeah, sure. Well,
But Paul Jenkins came in and whooped things into shape,
I was get
in my opinion.
okay. Well, I was going to say real quick the burn run.
Mhm.
Okay, of just the adjectiveless. That's a hard word for me to say.
Yeah.
Hulk. I think it gets a bad rap primarily because of the whole bait and switch that he did with Betty.
Hmm.
Okay, a little
Hmm.
spoiler alert here for anybody who's never read Peter David's Hulk or the latter half towards the end or John Byrne's Hulk. Betty dies. Okay,
Yeah.
and that had a huge emotional impact on the fandom.
Oh, it was a killer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it really was heavy on the Hulk too, on Banner. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? It
Hmm.
set him off on a completely different path. And early on in John Byrne's run, he made you believe that Betty was back. There she is. Bing, bang, boom. Guess what? Nope. It's a fraud. She's actually this plant being
Hmm.
pretending to be Betty
Like, didn't
Banner.
like Tyrannus get involved, and or is that a different part of the Burn run? The Tyrannus
I'm not.
or
I don't
Tyrannus?
remember if that was from that part.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect for the rewind reads. I'm gonna have to go back
Hmm.
and look at all that. But the reason why I brought this up initially was, is that why you specifically cite the Burn Run for being crappy or not great because of that specific instance?
No, not necessarily. I just felt like it like the Peter David stuff. It was, you know, it was a superhero comic for
Mm-hmm.
sure, but it felt a lot more than that. It felt like it had the elements of soap opera in it. It had tragedy in it. It was just a really good run. It was probably one of the best runs in mainstream superhero comics ever.
Mm-hmm.
And like then he left. They brought in like Joe Casey to
Yes.
do some stuff with like the Circus of Crime,
Yep.
and then they rebooted it with or relaunched it with Byrne with without the incredible adjective. Then he did like a year one annual or a chapter one annual, which is absolute garbage. Um, just I can't even remember very many specifics of it. I just remember it feeling very stodgy. Like like when they were the four Spider-Man books, and like one of them was written by Tom DeFalco.
Yeah.
If you ripped all the covers off of the Spider-Man books, you would know which one was DeFalco because it felt like it smelled like mothballs. You
All
know, it
right.
just feels so old and just so stodgy and out of date, and that's how the Burn Hulk felt to me.
Well, I had to double check real quick here, my
Hmm.
my remembrance, but my memory rather. His 80s run was incredibly short, as was his run on the Hulk,
Hmm.
because this starts Paul Jenkins with issue 12.
Yeah, yeah, and Byrne didn't even write the first 11 because I think Eric Larson wrote a couple issues there because it was tying into Wolverine getting his and it was before Wolverine got the adamantium back, but I think there's
Issue
a
7
Eric
or 8, I think
Larson.
it was, maybe?
I think so. It's the only one that's worth having.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
Paul Jenkins here, and it's great that you brought up Peter David and how,
Hmm.
he brought a lot of superhero aspects to the book. It was a superhero book, but one of the things that Peter David is famous for was the whole psychology of it, the fractured psyche
Hmm.
of the Hulk, and
Oh yeah.
abuse, and Banner's childhood, and
That was a Mantlo thing, right? The abuse aspect was
correct.
Mantlo,
But Peter
and
David
David
really
built on
he
it.
really expanded
He
on it.
he kicked it
He
up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kicked it up a notch. Jenkins takes it even further on this.
even
Even
further with the
further.
Devil Hulk. Yeah.
Yes, this is also the first appearance of the Devil Hulk. Technically,
Hmm.
I don't know how
Yeah.
really how the Devil Hulk transpired in Immortal Hulk because I refuse to read it. So I don't know if he looks the same.
He's behind the green door or something
Right,
like that,
right.
right?
So I don't really know a lot about the Devil Hulk, to be
Hmm.
honest with you. I mean, I'm sure I could hop online right now and, oh yeah, yeah, it is like this. But I'm not going to do that
Hmm.
to you. That's not how I
Yeah.
rock and roll here. But here, when he dives into the Hulk psyche, it's showing off how there's basically. I was going to use.
It's basically like Herman's head, right?
Yeah, and I was going to use a word that you hate, but it
Mhm.
predates kind of what they did with Spider-Man because there's unlimited amount of Hulks, but rather than
Mhm.
there being multiple Earths, it all happens
Sure.
in Banner
In his
in
head.
Banner's dome. There's a Hulk of every color. There's a Hulk of every
Yeah.
emotion. There's a Hulk of every, whatever day of the week it is, however he's
Yeah,
feeling.
the one thing I didn't like about that is that they called the Hulk from the Pantheon era the Professor
Mm-hmm.
Hulk, where I like that just being the Hulk. I didn't like that being a different. I like that's like the most perfect Hulk to me,
Mm-hmm.
which was basically like him being a green Superman. But I just like that whole era. I hate that they actually made that into a different personality because it just felt like the right one for me.
They kind of had to. That
I
that was the
guess.
thing with that, because with the Hulk having all those different personalities, now the main ones, of course, being Professor Hulk, Dumb Hulk, Gray Hulk, Joe
Hmm.
Fixit. They associated Joe Fixit with being like the rebellious teenager.
Hmm.
Of course, the Dumb Hulk being the childhood, the
Sure.
rage, and then of course Professor Hulk being that perfect amalgam.
The
Yeah,
intellect. Yeah.
exactly, between Banner and the Hulk, and in many ways, much like Swamp Thing, where Swamp Thing, it was revealed that in the anatomy lesson, he wasn't a man who was a monster at all. He was
Hmm.
a monster who believed himself a man.
Hmm.
Professor Hulk still believes himself to be Banner. You know what I mean? He
Hmm.
responds to Banner, he answers to Banner,
Sure.
all of that. This story can get a little bit precious at times, especially
Hmm.
with that subject matter. But one of the things I
Gotcha.
really enjoyed, and I think the most, was there is a friend of Banner he's just introduced in this story. She was a girlfriend from college prior to Betty. And much like Leonard Sampson, she's a psychologist. She studies neurology, and she confronts Leonard about the infamous moment in Hulk 377, right when Professor Hulk first became the dominant personality,
Hmm.
when they were struggling. Remember the ringmaster? I don't remember if you the entire
Hmm.
story
Hmm.
hypnotized Banner and everything else. But she was like, Leonard, you knew that wasn't really Banner. You played it off like it was him. You told
Yep.
him it's you. And Samson is just like, well, what other choice did I have? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
It was a
the least of all evils.
exactly,
Yeah.
and this was the moment that I really enjoyed in this story.
Hmm.
The pacing, a little iffy. Some of the characters, a little iffy. I think
How was the decompression in that?
how do you mean?
Because that, like, was did it feel like it was fluffed to fill a trade?
No, no, I don't think
Okay,
so.
wasn't we hadn't made it there yet?
No, it didn't feel. Yeah, exactly. It didn't feel like writing just for the trade.
Because that was the one thing about the Bruce Jones run that I really didn't like.
Really.
Like everything was like part one of six.
Yeah, no,
It's
I,
like,
I can
oh,
follow
we
you
got
on that.
6 months of
I
this.
actually, there's
Yeah,
another great read because I enjoyed the Bruce Jones run,
I did
and it,
too.
it
I
caught a
did
lot of
too.
flack when it
Hmm.
came out. Now back to this one real quick. It does have a lot of
Hmm.
superhero elements. There are some cameos in there. There is a villain introduced, which I was not crazy about, named Flux, who is also a gamma irradiated being
Hmm.
used by this sinister general who is out to get the Hulk. And that's the other thing too, is retcons, right? There's a whole lot
Sure.
of retconning going on in here, where this general's name is Riker, and apparently now he was at the gamma bomb testing site. He was behind, for example, like the
I think we were there
yes,
too.
the JFK
Yeah.
assassination, and yada yada
Oh
yada.
Lord.
So there's a lot going on there with that makes you kind of go, okay, Paul. I mean, I get it. You want to add weight to this villain, right?
Hmm.
He needs
Sure.
substance. He
Sure.
needs you got to know how sinister and evil this guy can truly be, especially when you're dealing with the likes of the leader or Abomination. Hulk's normal rogues gallery.
Sure.
Especially if you want to keep him around for later, which he has made other appearances. But overall, despite the fact I remember this so fondly, I found it to purely be okay. You know what I mean? Story wise, we're just
Hmm.
talking about story now, okay?
Sure.
There were moments where I felt like it was a little sloppy, a little rushed, a little slow. I mean, you name it, all over the place, where I was kind of just sitting here analyzing it and going, I can understand why I liked it much more when I was younger, where I don't think I. Okay, two things. One, I'm reading this again, not only for my enjoyment, but to discuss on a live stream, so I can be a little overly analytical, right?
Of
Because I
course.
have to make a discussion out of this thing. And then
Hmm.
two, I can see why I liked it when I was younger because it did have a good mix of action, drama. and a little bit of backstory here. But yet again, reading it now in my 40s, I'm like, despite the fact that it had these elements that I know would have appealed to me when I was younger, I don't think all the puzzle pieces fit together quite as nicely, yet again, as I remembered them.
Sure.
Now, let's move on to the other part of this book because you and I are both Ron Garney fans. We like ourselves some Ron Garney. Now, Ron Garney is an interesting cat because, okay, he's a fantastic artist. Let's get that out of the way. The guy can draw like nobody's business. Although, he is a little dependent on inker, like most are. Now, in this one, he is inked by legendary Hulk artist, just about legendary everything artist, Sal Buscema. Now, if I remember correctly, you're not the biggest Sal Buscema enthusiast.
No, because he does a lot of inking on some of the turn of the century Bat books, and just like the Byrne comment they made, it makes it feel very old, makes it feel very out of date. There's just no freshness there. I think there's an issue I covered not too long ago that was Jim Aparo pencils, Sal Buscema inks,
Oh boy.
and it looked like it could have been like a 1978 Charlton book.
Really?
You know, it just looked really not great.
I really enjoy Sal Buscema, but I can totally get what you're saying now, where a lot of Garney's art looked a little flatter than maybe it normally would, due to the inks, which is kind of disappointing.
Sure.
Another thing I found a little unusual was there are so many really giant, unusually large foreheads in this book. It's a cause for alarm. Now, I don't know if you ever saw the MTV Liquid Television series, The Head.
Yes.
Okay, if you remember that dude who had the little alien living inside of his brain, that's how a lot of the foreheads in this book looked. But
Macrocephaly.
there you go, man. But overall, I cannot complain. I thought the book was still a very, very impressive looking tome that I quite enjoyed very, very much. I do wish, of course, the story was a wee bit better. But alas, I mean, as far as the Hulk lore, you know, it fills a need there, and it's something that we can kind of look back on and say, yeah, all right, well, this is canon. It made sense, and here we are. Just, am I in love with it? No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Paul Jenkins. And Paul Jenkins is another one, man. I remember his Spectacular Spider-Man, I believe. Oh, Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man.
Peter Parker. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good too.
It was with Mark Buckingham on did pencils for most of that.
Is it Buckingham
really
or
good
Buckingham?
One of them.
There we go.
Bucky.
Yeah, right, because I know that's an ongoing thing on the NML Crossing podcast of yours.
Indeed.
But yeah, so this is something we're going to do even more in the future. And I want you to participate because I feel like I got verbal diarrhea on the whole
I
thing.
started my reread. I didn't get very far into it because my life kind of fell apart.
Yeah,
but I did start.
Right.
And the one I picked, because with the rule not digging, not digging, so I went and I picked up Starman.
Right on.
The first volume of Starman I wanted to read here. I read the first couple of issues of it, and as much as I
didn't get that. Could you...
Uh-oh.
Sorry,
You've
Suki.
angered the internet.
I've angered the gods here. Not as much as I love it, I could definitely see how it's probably not for everybody.
Right.
The art, the art. It's what is it? What the Harris?
Yeah,
right?
Tony Harris.
Like it's not like your classic, superhero art. It looks almost Vertigo-ish in a way. But so it won't be. It's not gonna probably not gonna rock everybody's socks. But the thing that gets me about it, and it's I've just been in a very melancholy place of late. But it's a lot of Jack Knight's character is predicated in nostalgia. Like he runs like a nostalgia store. Like you can see like Laurel and Hardy posters and just like weird little suits of armor and little tchotchkes and stuff. And every time I start reading this, I get lost in that. So it's like even hard to like stay focused on the story because it's just the nostalgia just starts hitting you really, really hard. And remembering where you were when you read it and what a different person you were, like you said, it's a recipe for melancholy, I guess. But it's a great story. I hopefully will be able to finish it this week and have have a report on your desk by the next time we record,
Yes,
and we'll talk about it deeper
that's
at
right.
that
Next
point.
week, I expect the full thing. I expect the
Mm-hmm.
contractor to be gone.
We'll
Maybe
see.
he's building himself a little nook that he can live in and kind of be that person under the
He might.
stairs,
He'll,
little
he'll be
troll.
Bad Ronald.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny though you bring up Starman because Starman is not a character, or that iteration specifically is not one that I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, it is intriguing that nowadays one of the things we talk about ad nauseum is legacy, legacy numbering, legacy
Mm-hmm.
characters. He was an interesting case where he was a legacy character, but he wasn't.
Yeah, he was like an accidental legacy because his brother was supposed to hold the mantle of
Uh
Starman
huh.
from the father, and then he gets killed. So it's like, well, here's the Star Rod.
Yeah.
Do your thing. It's like, I don't want
I'm
this.
punk
What are you
rock.
talking about?
Yeah, I don't need this
Yeah,
crap. Yeah, I don't want to do this.
yeah.
You know?
But it's because I think it runs 80 issues, the entire run of it, and it's just a constant maturation of a character
Mm-hmm.
and accepting his role and accepting because I mean there's a woman who gets involved, a child is born. There's a lot of stuff that ages him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really very touching. Every year there's an issue called Talking with David, which I'm doing right now. But it's his brother David who was Starman and died, and he would check in with his dead brother. He would have a conversation with his dead brother once a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be like Talking with David 1996, Talking with David 1997. So it was really nice way to touch base and kind of elaborate on what's going on. They actually worked out like all of the Starmen in it. Like Mikhail Tomas, the blue one from first issue special, he's part of this. There's one from the like Prince Gavin, is it? The one from the far flung future is like somehow interweaved into the lore and the lineage. Really it's like Jeff Johns before Jeff
Mm-hmm.
Johns. Is James Robinson who I mean him and Robinson and Johns did the first year of JSA together. So really really interesting to see the person who handed the baton to Johns do something that very
Sure.
Johns-esque before the fact.
And that's really a lot. There's hardcore fandom for that run of
Oh,
Starman. Holy moly.
passion, love, yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
it's really heralded as being the best Starman run and yada, yada, yada,
Yeah.
and on and on.
To the point where it's never been revisited.
Mm.
Like I don't think anybody can top it. Robinson did come back for issue 81 during Blackest Night when they were doing like that, which was a cool gimmick. I love the resurrection books.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd get Starman 81, you'd get like an issue of Suicide Squad from the volume from the first volume in the mid 80s. They did an extra issue of that. They did like a weird Adam and Hawkman issue. Very very cool. I think they even did like a Jonah Hex one. They resurrected that for an issue or something like that. Pretty interesting stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. But they did it for Starman, and I don't remember liking that issue very much, but I thought it was a cool gimmick.
Yeah. You know, Chris, there was something else I read this week that isn't old. It's actually pretty gosh darn new. But when I read
Mm-hmm.
it the first time in single issue format, I thought to myself, yeah, this is pretty boring. It's kind of like watching paint dry. And by the time the issue, I
Hmm.
mean, by the time the series ended, I was kind of like flipping through it, going, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know how this is cheap. So I bought it, and I'm like, let me give it another
Sure.
shot. I bought the trade for Is Anything Sacred Anymore? Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. To which they were initially going to call the series Dark Crisis, and then later I think it was issue 3. They're like, on Infinite Earths. We got you, sucker.
Yeah. And then they reprinted the first two issues with the new title on it.
Yes, yeah, they. I know, isn't that crazy? But I'm like, let me
Ugh.
give this another chance. Let me try just one more time and
Hmm.
see if it can endear itself to me. Because I like Joshua Williamson.
Sure.
I
No
think
problem with
his current Superman run is fantastic, and I know he's going to be
that. Hmm.
doing what is he working on, the DC All In Special. So
Hmm.
he's going to be
Hmm.
part of the architects with for the whole new DC universe thing. I have been on record saying his whole Night Terrors thing though that was terrible. That was
That was not
poorly
good.
timed. Everything else. Well, let me tell you, there, buddy boy,
Hmm.
Pally, friend of mine.
Hmm.
despite the fact this is bound in a different way, it does not change my feelings on this book whatsoever. And I bring it up mainly because of the whole legacy thing.
Sure.
Because
Oh
in
yeah.
Justice League 75, the Justice League died.
Are
They're
dead.
dead,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, they're the sidekicks and the children and everybody else have to take the mantle on Earth and help stop this dark crisis.
Yeah. They can totally shoulder the burden of a landscape changing
Yeah,
series.
well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, it's okay. It's just so dry. It really is. And
Yeah.
the way I described it to you was it is vanilla. That's what
Mm-hmm.
this book is. It is straight up vanilla. So
Yeah, I
too bad.
tried reading that on the app,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a doctor's office, and I got about two issues in, and I decided that the wall was more interesting.
Ouch.
So I closed the tablet, and I'm like, this is doing nothing for me.
Uh-huh.
I didn't hate it, but it was just nothing. It was just like you said. I actually like vanilla a lot, so
Yeah.
but that's like the vanilla in the little paper cup that you pull the little lid off, where it's basically just cold milk.
Yeah, but, yeah, but
Yeah,
Chris, it's like I told you, man, in a world full of unlimited flavors,
it's true.
combinations, Rocky Road, Moose
Yeah.
Tracks, you name it, vanilla is
Hmm.
is the lowest common denominator. It's like
Yeah. It's the
the
base.
base of ice cream, which is just so
Yeah.
boring. Oh my god. I'm a cherry vanilla guy myself, and I will say this: out of these two books that I'm talking about, I don't know why my
Hmm.
arms are bent in such a weird way. Why can't I hold these like a normal human being? Anyway, here
There
we
you go.
are.
You just got to
I
practice.
contorted
Yeah.
there for a second. I would
Hmm.
actually choose
Hmm.
Dogs of War over Dark Crisis. So
You had a,
what does that go to tell you? I don't know.
you had a 50-50 shot there.
I did. I really did. So there we are, face to face, a couple of silver spoons, which is a statement I
Hmm.
feel like I say every episode. So I hope Ricky Schroeder sends me a royalty check.
I think he's just Rick now.
Okay, whichever. Just I don't care who signs it. Just send me my little check for 24 cents. I'm a happy
Hmm.
guy. That's
Hmm.
it, man. So
Hmm.
anyway, we're gonna move on here a little bit, unless there's anything you want to say about Dogs of War, Dark Crisis, Starman, or Rewind Reads. The floor is
Nah,
yours.
nah. I think I've said my
All
piece,
right, and next week we're gonna get
and
the.
I don't have a whole lot to offer.
We
Yeah.
should have the full Starman experience because you did actually,
Fingers
for only a
crossed.
couple issues, you had quite a lot to say of what you
Oh yeah.
remember from the series. So
Hmm.
that's a good sign. I'm gonna have to find a new homework assignment.
Hmm.
And we did mention be careful with the digging. We don't want any injuries
No
as a
injuries.
result of this segment of the show. That's what makes Sweet Spot Reads just a wee bit easier. Actually, no, not always necessarily, because some things do tend to be buried. Even though,
Oh sure.
I'm going to tell you this, is that my last trip to the comic shop, I bought some issues I
Hmm.
already had just so I wouldn't have to
Hmm.
unbury them again.
Oh, just the ease of read buys.
Hey
Yes.
man, they're only a couple bucks. I'm like,
Sure.
why not? I love the books. They're
Hmm.
some of my favorite books of all time. They're cheap, and
Couple
I don't.
couple bucks is worth a little bit less than 45 minutes of
There you
digging.
go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very very much. So, all right, man. Now you also went and did some digging of your own recently.
I did.
You
I
are
did.
someone who I like to refer to as the king, and your reign shall never be challenged of something, a word that we like to use known as ephemera.
I love my
You like
ephemera.
stuff on the
I
cusp of
do.
collecting of the whole fandom
Mm-hmm.
that may not necessarily be a comic itself, but reminds us or deals with or relates to the medium in general. So, will you
Absolutely.
please, I'm looking for the word archaeologist of ephemera.
Hmm.
I'm going to keep throwing different titles your way.
I like it.
Show us your wares.
Okie dokie. I actually I did a bit of digging here. And I didn't file these away so I could have them on the show here. It's
Perfect.
just a bunch of stuff here. But cover the ephemera first. You'd think I'd have this in some sort of an order, and I don't. Where are we? Yeah, one of them is very, very thin. So maybe too thin. There it is. Well, the first thing I found was something that, like to talk about sometimes when we go through the bins and we're like shocked to find out something exists that we never knew exists or existed. And for me, this week, it was the Gen 13 zine, something I'd never seen before, never heard of before, and didn't know what the hell it was. It was only a couple bucks, but it was in a taped bag, so I couldn't like open it up and see what it was about. So, when I texted you about it, you're like, "Well, is it a comic? Is it a magazine?
Right.
What is it?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So as I'm sitting in a drive-through, I I opened it up and found out that it is basically like an old school zine. It's weird stuff here. Just some character profiles, some weird articles, some
Mm-hmm.
interviews. Um, you get the where is it here? You get the picture of Jim Lee in drag,
Holy
which
moly! What is
yeah,
going
yeah,
on there, baby?
yeah, something you'd never expect to see. But I don't know. Don't know if it was worth the couple bucks I paid for it, but it's still fun to
Yeah,
have.
sure.
Um, it's an interesting thing, and the cover actually pays off a mystery. I don't know if this cover is in canon or not, but there's an issue where Freefall gets a tattoo, and we never find out what it is.
Huh.
And here we can see her getting a tattoo of Hello Kitty. So I guess that's maybe that solves it. Maybe this is out of continuity. Who
It
knows?
may be. We may never know, but guess what? Whatever that
We may
tattoo
never
is in
know.
your head canon is what it's going to
It's
be,
now
baby.
Hello Kitty.
That's it. You
Yeah.
know? I am,
And another thing I
real
found.
quick though, I'm
Good.
very intrigued by this whole Jim Lee and drag thing. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if that's ever come back to haunt him ever in the DC
I wonder.
offices. Like, they're like, hey man, we saw you
Mm-hmm.
with, it looked like he was wearing Bruce Wayne's mom's Martha's
Per.
pearl necklace there too.
Yeah, yeah. He better stay out of Crime Alley.
Exactly. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that won't end well.
All right. What else you got
Another
for
thing.
us, man?
Another thing I found here. It's a very very thin thing here. It's a single page here. Folded together here. Um, this is something. It's almost embarrassing because I found one of these a few years ago and I actually paid a couple bucks for it. I think I paid like $5 for it because I didn't know what it was. It was bagged, and it's Marvel stock reports. It's a quarterly report for Marvel stocks. And I remember it's like I paid $5 for the last one. I get it home, I open it up, and it's a single sheet. It's like there's nothing in there. It's just a note to the shareholders. This one I found in a 50-cent bin. So I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better for paying 50 cents for this because it's just a sheet of paper. But it's a very interesting thing here. You have June 30th, 1996 compared to December 31st, 1995, and you can see prices are everything's going down for Marvel, but they're trying to spin it in a way where they don't lose all of their shareholders. Um, just an interesting bit. Doesn't add any value to anything. It's not even terribly interesting. It's just neat to have.
That's true.
One of those things I just couldn't leave behind.
Is there a mark on the cover who drew it? Like, or is it a very generic thing? What's going on there?
Um, it's the X-Men. The last one I got was Generation X on the cover. This is just the X-Men here. I don't know who drew that.
Okay, I didn't know if there was a name on it or
Yeah, don't
something. You
know.
never know. Maybe it's
It might
the
be.
first work of some renowned artist that we all cherish today.
Hmm.
We don't know this. It could be the case.
It could very well
You
be.
know?
It looks like someone doing a Kubert or Kubert
Mm-hmm.
impression. It may be one of the Kuberts doing a Kubert impression,
Okay.
for all I
We
know.
just whatever. All we know is that you're 50 cents poorer for
Mm-hmm.
seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's true.
And
It's
I
true. And I pass those savings on to you.
right, I am the owner of one share of Marvel that I
Mm-hmm.
bought in the early 2000s. And I bought it.
The right time to
I
buy.
bought it because I wanted the certificate to hang on my wall, and I don't know where that certificate is right now. It's probably in one of my comic book boxes somewhere.
There you go.
And I also had this weird dream that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have heard the stories, the folklore that, oh man, I found 50 shares of original Coca-Cola in the
Your
floorboards,
Apple.
and
Yeah.
now I'm rich, baby. Now I'm buying a yacht. You know what I mean? I was thinking maybe this one share of Marvel someday I'll be like, yeah,
Could.
I doubt it. I think it's worth like probably like
No.
18 bucks now or something. I don't know. Someone else can look that up. I have no idea. I'd have to.
You could almost get a new issue of their comic for
There
that.
you go, man. I own the Hulk's little piggly toe. That's what I own. His little
There
piggy.
you go.
There we go. One share. And you know what? At the time, it was so dirt cheap. I could have bought 50 shares. You know what I mean?
Sure,
I was
sure,
like 20,
sure.
21 years old. I could have spent like $50 and gotten like whatever, you know? But instead, I decided to
Yeah.
diversify my profile. I bought one share of Marvel and another share of Sirius Radio. And I
Hmm.
think it was like Delta Airlines or something. Is Delta even still
Okay.
around? I don't even know.
Oh yeah, I flew
Oh,
Delta a
did
couple
you?
months ago.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
There you go. That was like a penny
You're
stock.
welcome.
Yeah, that was like,
Yeah, I upped your value.
yeah, sure, by a fraction of a point zero zero zero
Mm.
something. But yeah,
We bought 2 tickets.
hey, you know what? Here's the other thing. That's something I didn't even get a certificate from, so I don't even know if I still own it. For all I know,
Oh,
I've been abolished or there was some kind of class action something or other, and they're like,
you might have been.
claim
You might
this.
have. Yeah, you might have relinquished
Yeah.
your rights to it.
I did though. One time, I did get a shareholders book from Marvel. It did
Hmm.
not have the X-Men on the cover. I don't remember if it was really adorned in such a nice fashion, but I did think it was cool at the
Hmm.
time. So I think I received it in like 2002 or 2003. But
Okay.
it was thicker than
Interesting.
that. It was, I think it had
Hmm.
a bunch of, the legalese stuff in there.
Sure.
So that's the other thing.
Yeah, the legalese here is really
Yeah.
small. It's you can see it like at the bottom of the page here. It's like all
Hmm.
that junk. Yeah.
Well, what makes that even more interesting is, and you mentioned about the values, is Marvel's lean times,
Oh yeah.
especially in the 90s. So that's
Hmm.
ephemera that at least reflects history in a very
Hmm.
poor time in Marvel's history. So there you go.
It's true. It's
And it's
true.
all yours.
Yeah, I don't know if you, I know. For 2 quarters. I don't know if you want me to go through my pile here or
Oh,
not.
you have
I
more?
can if you like.
Yeah, if you get.
Well, it's not ephemera. It's just
Oh,
comics.
okay, dude, I got the time. Do you get the time?
I
Then
do.
do the
I
crime.
do, and
Come on now.
it's not so loud, so we can do this here.
Okay, yeah, I haven't heard
Uh,
a hammer in a while. I haven't heard
yeah.
MC Too Legit to Quit back there making
Yeah,
things
yeah, no,
happen.
yeah, no, yeah, we can't touch
Are you
this.
wearing Zubaz
Um,
pants right now?
I'll never tell.
Ah.
I'll
All right, man, let's see what you got.
now. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I left a trade behind at a record store that was only a couple bucks, and it was like I felt bad about it for a minute, and then I realized I don't really want the trade. Then I went back, and it was still there, and I picked it up and I opened it, and it was $3. It's a series that I think a lot of people remember fondly, mostly those who haven't read it. Um, Stars and Stripe. I picked up the Stars and Stripe trade here, part one. And the reason I picked it up is I felt bad leaving it in a record store because on the inside front cover, looks like a sister bought this for her brother. I don't know if you can see this here. It says to Adrian from your sis, I love my bro.
Oh, that's nice. Wow,
And I
look at
felt
that.
bad about leaving it on the shelf at a record store.
Mm-hmm.
I at least knew I'd give it a good home right here on one of my shelves.
Okay.
So I picked it up for $3. I think it was like a $20 book to begin with,
You could legally
but yeah,
change
since
your
it had
name
the
to Adrian, make yourself feel better
I could,
about it.
I could,
Yeah.
I could, I could. While I was digging in the 50 cents and dollar bins, I found an issue of Wizard that I needed. I don't know why this one's eluded me for so long. Wizard 59. It's outside of the first issue of Wizard, it was the only one that I needed from the first 100 issues. And because I still need the first one because that one is ridiculously expensive. Uh, but the thing of it was, that one was expensive like almost from like the second week it hit the racks. I don't know if you remember that.
I do
Like when
not.
the first issue of Wizard, okay, when the first issue of Wizard came out, I think it had like a $3 price tag, just MSRP. And like a week later, it was already like $10 because it was a first installment of a magazine. And I mean, it's fairly iconic. Even back then, it was fairly iconic. And I think now it's a couple $100 to get it, and I just never got it. So maybe one of these days. It's not really a priority for me, but I saw this for $1. It was the last one I need from the first 100 outside of the first one, so I grabbed it. Another magazine I found was this here. I picked it up because it's talking about Titan's Hunt. Do you remember Titan's Hunt?
I did not read it, but I do remember the whole hoopla there was for Titan's Hunt.
Titan's Hunt is one of the like I feel like I'm at odds with Titans fandom when I talk about Titans Hunt because I thought it was garbage. Because Titans Hunt happened, and then a few months later, Total Chaos happened, and that's where like the Team Titans came in, like the new Terra, the future Titans came back to kill Donna Troy and her son, and Total Chaos gets a lot of flack. I read them both in a row, and I covered them all on Chris's on Infinite Earths, and found that Total Chaos was the stronger of the two. It's just my opinion. Who knows? But an interesting thing about this is I read the Marv Wolfman interview in it, and he uses the term retroactive continuity. Now, I don't know. We were talking about this off the air, where like retcon wasn't really a saying back in the 1990, 1991. I know retcon as a I don't even know if we call it a portmanteau, whatever the hell it is, just the shortened form of retroactive continuity as retcon was allegedly coined by just some nobody on Usenet. It was at least credited to that person. But to see Wolfman actually say retroactive continuity in dealing with these Titans, it was very, very interesting to see because it just felt like something that would be said now rather than 35 years ago. Another interesting thing in here is the optimism around the Titans, where Wolfman was like all in, and he would become disenfranchised not too long after this interview. But talking about how we have the new Titans book, we're going to have the new Teen Titans book, which became Team Titans, and there was even some up and comer at Marvel who was going to get their own Titans book by the name of Rob Liefeld, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always heard the rumors, and I usually heard it from Rob. And when Rob says something online, most people just say, "I don't believe him." I'm a little bit more lenient on Rob's tales, but it was interesting to see Wolfman talking about Liefeld coming over to do a Titans book, which was allegedly going to be Titans Force, and was what was kind of reimagined into being Youngblood a year or two later. So interesting stuff. A nice time capsule sort of silliness.
Right on.
Here the pile. Now I'm on a quest to collect every single issue of Action Comics, which will never ever happen, of course.
Hey, one
But
can
I'm
dream,
working my way
man.
back. It's true. I'm working my way backwards, and I found the newest one that I needed, which was the first appearance of Captain
Oh,
Strum,
boy.
Action Comics 421, I think. Yeah,
Uh huh.
421. Um, Now I had passed on this one because I thought I already had it, because I had the other issue of Action with Captain Strong on the
Uh
cover.
huh.
It's like, oh, I got that one. I didn't. So now I have a full run of Action going back to issue 410.
Wow.
So yeah, like 600 and something issues. I only need a couple more to get down into the 300s. So
Dude,
hopefully
that's
soon
awesome.
I'll get there.
Holy
It's pretty
moly,
neat.
that's great. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I try to get books going back to when I was born, and this goes, my Action run now goes back like a decade before I was
Uh
born.
huh.
So it just, a half century of Action Comics. Pretty interesting.
That's great.
Let's see here. Some silly stuff. Speaking of Rob Liefeld, I picked up this here, Hawk and Dove.
Hawk and Dove, baby. Yeah, look at that.
This is for a either a blog or podcasting project that I'm never ever gonna do.
Okay,
But
yeah.
here it is. Um, I was planning on going all in on Titan stuff, and it's like, is that ever gonna happen? Probably not.
Right.
But I'm still buying the stuff. Here's this. You remember the weird mid late '90s Hawk and
I
Dove?
never liked Hawk and Dove one iota. Now,
Nobody did.
with the whole Armageddon 2001 stuff,
Yeah,
that's pretty much my
with extant.
my
Yeah.
limited exposure to anything Hawk and
Mhm.
Dove. So yes, I do not remember that at all.
Yeah, they weren't great, but this is a weird one because it doesn't have the real Hawk and Dove in it. It has two other characters, and it's funny here how, like one of the things I complain about is the overuse of Amanda Waller
Yeah,
in like everything now.
sure.
She makes an appearance in this silly little Hawk and Dove miniseries back in the '90s. Very weird.
Huh.
How the mighty have fallen, I guess, or I guess where they come from. Also got this Hawk and Dove. Speaking of Liefeld, finished up my new 52 Hawk and Dove, which was not great. Got couple issues of Legends of the Dark Knight I thought I already had. So there's that.
Okay, one of those looks in pretty rough shape there, my friend.
Is
The
it?
spine on
It
that,
might
I
be.
could see the glare
Yeah.
from here, and I was like, ooh, ouch.
Yeah, the new format DC books, when you find those in the bins, they usually are worse for wear because of the paper stock. The newsprint ones are usually a lot more forgiving
Mm,
on crumpling. Um, issue of Deathstroke here from 1993, I think.
coolness.
Um, I picked this up because I'm trying to have everything with Nightwing's name on the cover.
Okay, everything,
This
huh?
one isn't called Nightwing. Yeah, I only need one more book. I thought this was one that I didn't realize I needed, and it was not. Showcase 94, picked up that. What do we got here? Oh, I picked up these things.
Oh,
The free
yeah,
previews.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, and was privy to a conversation about DC All In, where a customer was in the shop saying, "You know what? Every single day I hate DC Comics a little bit
Oh,
more."
man. That's
Because he
brutal,
saw this
dude.
All In. Yeah, and it's like
Holy cow.
the the guy behind the register is like kind of like acting like he doesn't know what All In is
Mm-hmm.
really. He doesn't want to really, because I mean, he's trying to sell this stuff, of course. He's like, we'll wait and see. We'll see what it is. I don't know what it is yet. But the guy's like, they keep doing this crap, yada yada yada. And it's like I find myself somewhere in the middle of the two of those. Like, it's like I see it and I'm like, we don't need that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you got to sell stuff to stay in business.
Hey, man, yeah.
Now this book here is one that's near and dear to you.
Sure.
And it's haunted me because I didn't realize I didn't own it.
Okay.
I think this is something that a lot of us bin dwellers do. Where like we just see a book as we're flipping through and it like stops us in our tracks. And then we realize, I already have that one, and you keep going.
Yeah, that happens.
And then you see it over and over again. It's like, I already have that one,
Uh-huh.
keep going. But it catches your eye every single time. And then one of those times you go home and you check for it and you realize, oh crap, I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it dozens of times, and I've left it behind dozens of times, and I need it. So it suddenly becomes like your top priority book. It was this one.
Hey, baby, yes,
I
yeah.
would have bet every cent in my pocket, which is very few, that I own this.
Oh, wow, I can't believe you didn't own that already. Holy.
Me either.
Wow.
Yeah, either. I think it was like $5. I was like, why not?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was shocked when I got home and I was like, I don't have it. I don't know if I got it mixed up with Booster Gold #1.
Hey, man.
Because I have that.
Let me tell you something else about that copy of the book that you just had in your hand. That is the newsstand edition. So
And
it
it's got a barcode.
survived trials and tribulations unknown to the direct edition books.
Mhm.
How many hands? How many different? What was that kid's name again? From the Stars and Stripe book. The little inscription.
Oh, Adrian.
Adrian. How many Adrians that
Yeah.
went through?
And Adrian's sisters.
Exactly, before it landed
Yeah.
in your lap for a measly
Mhm.
small amount of $5 bills. And to me,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that thing's worth $1 billion, baby. What a great book.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh, yeah. A lot of
wonderful.
fun.
Did you
A
know
lot of
you're
fun.
going to get that kind of response out of me? Were you waiting for
I
that?
had a feeling you were going to dig
Oh,
it. I had a
yeah,
feeling you were gonna
that's
dig it,
my
yeah.
jam. All day, all night.
At the record store, I found now these are books that I've seen in the back issue bins at comic stores for at least $10 each.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to be worth. They don't need that price on them because they're new. They're very new books.
Okay.
Only like a couple of years old, but for some reason, this Marvel run, it's kind of like Immortal Hulk, where like it came out, there was no shortage of copies, but every single issue was like $10. It's like, why is this?
Okay.
And it's the first Zarsky Daredevil.
Ah, all right.
I had dropped Daredevil during the Charles Soule run, which was not good. I got through the Wade run, even though that got very tired toward the end. And then when Soul came on, it was right after the Hickman Secret Wars, where it's like all this stuff was different. And it's like, don't worry, faithful reader, you'll know all the answers in a year and a half. And then like it never got solved.
Yeah.
It's like all these new things, but nothing was ever explained. So I dropped it then. But I've been going back to try to get my run complete. I only need one issue of Daredevil now to get me back to before the death of Elektra. So almost my entire life. And that one is another recent one. It's a Daredevil #2 from this run, which is like $20 for some reason. It's like ridiculous. But I got these for like $3 or $4 each. Got 4 of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I make one quick comment about Charles Soule's Daredevil stuff? Now, I will say, I will stand before you today and admit that Charles Soule, I believe, has the second greatest Swamp Thing run in the history of the character. Absolutely fantastic, wonderful. Stop.
That was the tail end of the New 52
Stop
stuff,
in
right?
your tracks. What a great story. But his Daredevil, to which I've read very little of, the reason for that was there was a character in that book, and the name of the character was Blind Spot. And I stopped and I thought to myself for a second, Daredevil's blind, and his sidekick or his little side assistant character is named Blind Spot. Charles,
Yeah,
you're hurting me, baby. You're hurting me deep down inside. You couldn't think of anything else?
And like people aren't supposed to know Daredevil's blind, right?
Bingo. Dude.
Why does Batman keep adopting young boys?
Well, hey, here's the other thing. Soul was a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, what a combination. Daredevil's a lawyer. The writer's a lawyer. We're going to get a lot of inside stuff here.
Baseball.
Inside baseball, exactly. And
It was not great.
there you go. But anyway, please continue on with your Hall of
Yeah,
Halls.
we're getting to the bottom.
Hey, it's
here.
all
We're
good.
getting
I
to the
love
bottom.
seeing this stuff, man. It gets me all jazzed up. I'm percolating.
This is one I found. This is one I found at the record store where it look like we've all heard of the subscription fold, right? Like where when you had the subscription to a comic back in the 70s and 80s, they would fold it in half, put it in an envelope. So like when you're in the bins and you see a book with a perfect crease in the middle, it's because it was probably a subscription book. Now this book here looks like it's got a subscription crease, but it's just the wall. So when I saw it at the record store, I'm like, oh crap, that one's got a fold. And it's like, no, it doesn't. That's just the wall. So that was a pretty funny one for me. Got this for 50 cents. I don't know why I keep buying these. It's like I just can't leave them behind for 50 cents.
You know, I can't blame you. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I read that first issue of Absolute Power, and Mark Waid's dialogue is a little bit on the old side. I couldn't imagine actually sitting down and reading this one, but what are you gonna do? Picked up a couple issues of Early Birds of Prey, just filling in holes, you know.
Okay. As one should.
Yeah, got this issue of Booster Gold from pre-Flashpoint, which was a fun series as far as I can remember. Don't know why I have this. A New 52 Huntress. Here's one I picked up just for the cover. I thought it was a cool cover. I have no interest in Wonder Woman.
Me neither.
But I thought it was a neat cover. Brian Boland
there you go.
on the Joker. And the last thing was something I forgot to order on DCBS because I don't know why I forgot. I just did. Ninja Turtles #1 just came out.
Okay. Who wrote that? Was that
it's
Jason Aaron?
Jason Aaron.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Jason Aaron, and it's got Joelle Jones, who did the early Catwoman.
Fantastic
at
artist.
DC. Wonderful artist.
Fantastic.
No, next level for sure. Haven't read it, probably won't. But I figured, why not?
Driving me crazy with this. You're like, everything you buy, like, but I'm not going to read it. But
a buddy of mine reminded me that it came out. He's like, oh, I got the new Turtles book. I'm like, oh, how is it? And he's like, it's decompressed. You know, it's like, he's like, it's Aaron writing it. It's you only get one turtle in it. So I guess it's going to be at least 4 issues with one per turtle. So I don't know.
Hey, at least it's going to be beautiful to look at.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Joelle Jones is phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, chef's kiss. Yeah. She is unbelievably talented. One of the best in the biz. Absolutely.
Ridiculous. Yep.
Now, is that all you have for your stack?
That's it. That's me.
You know, I think it's...
I got my DCBS box. I mean, that's just all new crap that I'm not going to read.
Jeez, will you stop with all that, please? Please now.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I think it's fantastic that you kept that Blue Beetle a secret from me.
I did.
When we were discussing this stuff in our private texts, you know what I mean? As we are friends and we share information when we're not live streaming. So that was great. That made me feel so good. But I want to, and I say this quite often, and this, I realize I'm saying things, I repeat myself all the time, whether it's like the yada yada yada. I can't help it. I'm a Seinfeld fan. I notice I say holy moly. We could do like drinking games on the Bada Bin show for the time I repeat the things that I say. But I do want to say this again: how the sausage is made, because this is the notes for the show. All right, and I'm not going to show everything, but
I've never even
there's like
seen it.
3 things on here, because we kind of just have a rough outline and just say we're going to go with it. Whatever comes up, comes up. So this being said, I had zero intention about talking about this. None.
Okay.
But there is a burden on my soul. I feel like the only way to relieve it is to use a public forum to let it out. You know, get the monkey off my back, all that good stuff. And you are aware of this, but now I'm going to the public and the person who I slighted. Now, I'm very interested in how people feel about this, but hunting, when you're hunting for comics, you and I were solo cats. We were alpha males in the wild hunting by ourselves. You find that meat, we ain't sharing that with nobody. You got that, Buster Brown? Over the last couple of years, I've developed a fantastic friendship with a friend of mine named Bada, and we go hunting together now all the time. To the point where I couldn't imagine going hunting without him. Like, we're Batman and Robin, baby. You know what? That's demeaning. We're Batman and Batman. All right? There's no sidekicks here. We're both superheroes.
There you go.
So, Dave, what are you talking about? Why do you need a confessional? Here's the reason. Long-winded format. My son recently had a camp. He's going into middle school. And I needed to kill an hour and a half while I waited him to do this orientation thing. Now, mind you, my good friend, best pal, Beto, and I keep saying this, love the guy. He's on vacation. He's in a different state. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? One of the comic book shops that we frequent all the time was open and only like 8 minutes away from the school.
There you go.
So I dug by myself, and boy, did I feel empty inside and guilty beyond belief. I felt like I betrayed this man to the point where I didn't even let him know. I haven't texted him since. Maybe that's... No, that's my wife.
That might be
that's
him.
my wife. I was even worried, like maybe he's watching live right now. I haven't checked the chat. He's like, you bastard! But I did some digging of my own. But even then, I found some good stuff. I found some stuff I'm going to talk about on air, so I wouldn't show it today because they aren't sweet spot books, and I'm saving those for a later date. But it's like, okay, in current times, watching something without your significant other on Netflix is a punishable offense, usually by divorce. Okay? In some cases, it's worse than having a frickin' affair. How dare you watch that show without me? We're in this together. You know? And in many ways, I feel like I've cheated on my friend by digging without him. So,
There you go.
Chris, can you help me out here? Can you make me feel better about this? You know, because
I cannot.
we are...
I've been a lone wolf for the last time I dug with a partner was probably 1994.
Yeah.
So it's been 30 years of me flying solo.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to even wrap my head around, you know, having an outing with a friend to go look at... Because, I mean, how many comic fans do you know in real life? How many comic fans do we know, period?
And who love to dig.
Not many.
That's the other thing.
I mean, you could take someone to a comic store and they'll go over to the Funko Pops. But to actually go to the bins, we're a rare breed.
You can lead a horse to water. You know, and the thing is you mentioned Funko Pops. I was going to say you go right past the new releases. Like the moment you go through the door, you make a beeline straight for those cardboard bins. You know what I mean? Beto, my friend Beto is that kind of guy. Like he loves it.
Yeah.
Dude, built for digging. So that's why, yet again, I feel like I've committed a sin, a cardinal sin, and I should be punished for this. Like 40 lashes for Dave, you know? And yeah, I found some good books. I hope that's still my wife. So I'm in trouble for something else with her. I guarantee it.
Probably.
I guarantee it. I should have turned off my phone so it wouldn't ding on the live stream. But anyway, so one of the things was, since you are a lone hunter, I was hoping that you'd be able to come up with an excuse for me to make it okay, since you don't have a
No,
digging buddy.
because I'm also far more Catholic than you, so I'm guilty for everything.
Okay. And we
So
are in boxes right now, so I thought maybe it was like a
mhm.
confessional, like if I just
Sure, just put a screen in front of in front of my face here. We can.
forgive me, Chris, for I have sinned. You know what I mean? That whole thing. But yeah, he'll
You
forgive
must
me.
read 9 issues of Heroes in
Oh,
Crisis.
jeez, Louise. I will never, I swear to God, Padre, I'll never do it again.
Never ever do it again.
I swear to God, if you make me do that's like punishment and a half. Oh my Lord. The path
I'd take the lashings
the
first.
path
Yeah.
to hell is lined with issues of heroes in crisis,
Mm-hmm.
for crying out loud.
It's true.
But yeah, but I know if you want me to show off a couple books now, I've gotten that off my
Sure.
chest. And to Beto, I'm
Make it happen.
sorry. You've got to understand that digging is my blood. It's my DNA. It's everything. Like, it's my favorite activity in the world. And to be honest with you, it was a little hollow because he wasn't there. I really did feel like.
Huh.
And here's the weirdest thing before I show off a couple of the books. When you first start hunting with someone after so long, you had mentioned it was 1994. For me, it'd been at least
Mhm.
20 something years too. Like,
Sure.
and initially it's hard to hold a conversation because
Hmm.
even though you're digging here, I'm digging there. If someone's talking to you, you almost tune them out at first because you're trying to do chewing gum and walking at the same time. You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Sure.
But now, over the last couple of years, I
Hmm.
am a multitasker, so I can not only talk to him, understand him, respond to him. I'm looking for books that he wants. I'm looking for books that I want. You know what I mean? There's a
Sure.
lot of enjoyment in that. Is quite
Hmm.
something else. It's like if you visited me in Texas and me and you went hunting together, which I think would be our number one priority.
Oh,
You're gonna feel
absolutely.
like a fish out of water initially. You really will, dude. Like
Oh,
for
I'm
me, it's
sure.
gonna be Nirvana. I'm gonna be like, this is great, but for you, you're gonna be like, Dave, shut up. Like I'm trying to dig here. Come on now. Like you're allowed to be in the room, the same room as me. You're not allowed to speak. You know.
But I don't know. I really don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, that was when I was a kid. That was fun. I mean, it was that was part of the, like,
Mm.
like you hear about people going to restaurants and eating by
Yeah.
themselves, right?
Damn.
And how alien that can feel to someone.
Yeah.
Um, like I couldn't imagine growing up like going to a comic store by myself. It wasn't even part of the equation. Like there was just no way
Right.
because it was one of the things we did socially.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of actually, being the only, dingling bell walking into a store, alien, totally alien.
Mm.
Until I, moved 3,000 miles away from everybody and had no choice.
Right. And when you're kids, you ride the bike there or here. You know what I
Of
mean? It's a
course.
journey. It's
Walk
fun.
tracks,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
So I know the same thing for me. And is the other thing too is you had said it's hard to find someone else who's into comics like you are nowadays, or like us, which is 100% accurate. But back then, everybody was into that kind of stuff. And then, of course,
Oh
life
yeah.
happens and people trail off. And some of my friends aren't surprised from childhood, who I don't really talk to as much as I should. So I'm sorry
Hmm.
to all of you. But others are completely like, yeah, it makes sense. Dave still is in his 40s and collects comics and action figures and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Like, those are the guys who
Sure.
got me. They knew. This was like a ride or die, man. But yeah, so apologies to him. But I'm also interested, yet again, posing a question to the audience, whether it's on the live
Yeah, for
stream or
sure.
during the replay. Do you hunt alone? Like when you go
Yeah,
digging,
digging styles.
what's up
Yeah.
with that? You know what I mean? How do you do it? Because yeah, I went from one style to another and I feel I can't look back. Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't as fulfilling had Beto been by my side. So
There
I
you go.
committed a sin. Like I said, I cheated.
Yeah.
I'm a bad man.
Yeah, maybe it's the entire digging process has just evolved for you, where there is a social element to
Mhm.
it now. Where with me, it's just like I'm in like I go in like predator vision, It's like I see the heat signature over there. It's
Uh-huh.
like, oh, that's where I got to be, and that's just it.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But anyway, I'd be very curious to hear the responses on that because
For
from
sure,
lone
for
wolf
sure.
to pack animal, how do you
Hmm.
roam? So I don't want to show
How do
off
you do
all
it?
the stuff yet again that I bought here, but there were a couple things. One I was very excited to get, so maybe I'll show it off first. It was in the dollar bin,
Hmm.
and actually, let me change my screen here to the Dave cam.
There you
so you can
go.
see the cover full size. But Superman 179, which is not really an issue of much note or importance other than to me, because this was the lone issue I needed to finish this entire era of Superman from. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, dude. Like, for some reason, it eluded me. I didn't want to go and buy it online for a couple bucks.
Sure.
And so when I saw it sitting there in the dollar bin, I was like, yes, please, thank you
Meant to
very
be.
much. Yeah, so the early OOs, the late 90s, this was the one that I needed to kind of seal the deal and complete that.
The Berganza era.
There you go. And this is the bad boy I needed. So yes, I was more than happy to spend $1 on this, even though I've yet to open it to see what kind of condition it's in. But it looks pretty crispy, at least from the outside. Even though, one thing I've learned in all these years of digging, a little plastic, little bag and a board goes a long way in deceiving the
Oh
eyes. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
for sure.
I've mentioned to you in the past, I have, this is kind of funny since we're bringing up the name again, I have a lot of good vibes and feelings towards the late 80s run on Spectacular Spider Man.
Hmm.
But this is also drawn, this cover, this wonderful illustration by none other than Sal Buscema.
Our pal Sal.
So there you go. Look at that. It's beautiful. Even though,
Better pencils than
yeah,
inks.
I got to say, I don't know how well you can see this, but the people in the background by my fingertips there,
Yeah.
that kid has seen some stuff.
He looks like one of the
There's
Littles.
been some trauma
Remember
there.
the Littles?
No, what are you talking about?
It was like an old Saturday morning cartoon where like these little critters, like little humanoid critters, lived in like mouse holes in the house.
That does sound vaguely familiar. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had like pointy ears. They kind of look like Christmas characters a little bit. They had the pointy teeth. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Now you're
They're like those
frightening me.
claymation, like the claymation, whatever the hell they were, the Rankin Bass.
Real quick before I continue, were there ever any
Mm.
shows from your childhood that just absolutely scared the living crap out of you?
Most of them.
Okay.
No, those childhood fears it's back when I was doing from Claremont to Claremont.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to theme every episode as being a little bit different. And for anybody watching who doesn't know what From Claremont to Claremont is, which is probably everybody, it was probably my most ambitious failure as a podcast creator, where I was doing entire months worth of X-Men books, starting with X-Men #1 from 1991. And the gimmick was I would have a different co-host for every single book. So these episodes were only like 2.5 of them ever came out, and it's because they were like 15 hours each. They were long,
Mm-hmm.
and for every episode, I wanted to have a different theme. So we'd finish talking about the book, and then I would ask my co-host a question, or we would go into a different discussion. Like once we did, like remember the Marvel profiles back in like the bullpen bulletin
Sure.
pages where they'd ask those stupid questions. I would ask my co-host these stupid questions. It's like if someone would play you in a movie, who would it be? And all that kind of silly crap. The most recent book you've read. And one of them that I had that was going to be in episode 4, which never happened. Episode 3 was a good one. It was the soundtrack of your life.
Oh.
Brought up a whole lot of fun conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like 10 songs that are basically the soundtrack of your life, and went in a lot of interesting places. But the next one I wanted to do was irrational childhood fears. So we'd get through talking about the book, and it's like, okay, now what irrational childhood fear did you have? Like could it be just like something like a ringing phone, or like what are those? Oh man, the emergency broadcast system tests. Stuff like that, or like weird logos on TV or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that was going to be a discussion point for episode 4, which just never happened. So yeah, it's a very fun topic, or an interesting topic to me at least.
Mark Siri says his favorite band is Garbage. Two things I want to say about this. Two,
Yeesh.
let me go into the weeds. As a kid, I think
Mhm.
my irrational fear was I had a belief that when I flushed a toilet, the sound after you flush the water running?
Where it's filling back?
Yes. If I didn't make it back under my sheets in my bedroom before that sound ended, my soul was going to hell.
Yeah. Wow.
That was dude, you take a leak. You book it.
Yeah.
You run back to your bed because you're like,
I, rem-
yeah, I don't want Mephisto rising out of the floor, pulling me down
I,
because I
rem-
was poking
I
around.
remember I used to hold my breath during commercials
Okay.
just to see if I could do it. And I was watching, it's so weird that this is like such a vivid
Uh
memory.
huh.
Um, I was watching cartoons on TNT, and before it went to commercial, like it had like a scene in a museum
Mm-hmm.
with like different cartoon characters like in frames, and then it like a lion came out and roared, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hold my breath until the next time I see that lion, which would have been at the end of the commercials, and it went right back into cartoons.
Oh,
So the lion didn't come back, but I couldn't hold my breath forever.
right.
So I think that's where I got all my bad luck from, because I broke that one thing I said I was going to do. I said I was going to hold my breath till the lion came back. Lion never came back, and I've been paying for it ever
Well, I'll
since.
tell you now, I do not rush back to anywhere after I flush a toilet. So let's not put too
Oh, you
much.
grew out of it.
Yeah, let's not put
Yeah.
too much credence into that. The second thing I wanted to mention was terrifying things as a child, cartoons, TV shows. I
Hmm.
feel like, as far as anybody I know or anybody I've ever associated with on the internet, the only person who's
Hmm.
aware of this.
Hmm.
There was a live action program, and I believe it was from the 70s, but it would replay when I was a kid in the 80s. And
Hmm.
it was so friggin' weird. And it actually took me a couple years to find out, because it went by a couple different names, to
Okay.
find out what exactly it was on the internet. And
Hmm.
if you have your phone handy, if
Hmm.
anybody has their phone handies, please Google Chico the Rainmaker, also known
Chico.
as the boy with
The...
two heads, where the theme song goes Chico, Chico the Rainmaker, Chico, Chico the Rainmaker, Chico, Chico the Rainmaker, Chico gonna make it rain. But
the boy with two heads.
yes,
Okay.
and it's a head, just a head with two children.
Just a head he's holding. Yeah.
He's not holding anything. He's just a head. That's all he
But there's
is.
a kid here holding him,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
He's holding the
yeah,
head,
because
right?
it's just
Yeah.
a head. Chico's the head, and the kids like play
Oh
a
boy.
flute, and he like pops out of a little box. He's like, "Hey, I'm Chico."
I've never heard of
Dude,
that.
terrifying, nightmare fuel to
Hmm.
the most severe degree. So if you ever just want to, like, I don't know, people who like to scare themselves, maybe they go on
Yeah.
amusement park rides for a thrill, for adrenaline rush, go to haunted houses. I don't know. Watch
Hmm.
yourself some Chico the Rainmaker, which is in fact available on the same format that you guys are watching us on today, known as YouTube.
Hmm.
And prepare to forever have your dreams
How about that?
completely ruined, haunted, and become
Yeah.
nightmares.
And if you like it, you can see
Mm.
also Back to the Future, Grease, Goonies, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Open Season, The Prisoner, Les Tontons Fling, French Fried Vacation.
What's going on here?
When you Google it, it brings up other things to, like, if you like this, here's more you can
Really?
look at.
That's
Back to the
unusual.
Future. Yeah.
I would not.
What
That's
are you
not a
gonna do?
connection that I would make. No.
Hmm. I, yeah, I mentioned him earlier. Bad Ronald. Do you ever hear of Bad Ronald?
No. Bad Ronald.
Bad Ronald was a made-for-TV movie
Mm.
about a kid who accidentally killed a neighbor, like a
Oh.
girl on like a swing or something. Like everybody would make fun of this kid. He was an awkward dork. It was from the 70s. But I think I saw commercials for it when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And he shoved her and she cracked her head open on a rock and died. So he goes home and he tells his mom what happened, and she encases him in the wall like my contractor. So he lived in this wall,
Uh huh.
and like she would feed him and all this stuff. She dies, and a family moves in, not knowing that there's this weird kid living in their walls. So that freaked me the hell out.
Wow.
Just like like commercials were different back
Mm-hmm.
then. Like every commercial now tries to be funny, where I think like back in the 80s, every commercial just tried to scare the hell out
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah. Maybe you're right.
Like those Time Life book commercials. You remember those?
Sure.
The read the book
Yep.
commercials.
Absolutely.
Like yeah, it's like this man was going to get on an airplane, but decided not to, and then the plane crashed. Why didn't he get on the plane? Read the book.
Right.
It's like, oh Lord, scared the hell out of me.
I'm actually looking at the chat going on right now underneath our video.
We have chat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Masshole Chef, who is my brother, Full
Yeah.
disclosure, he replied, things that terrified him as a child. Land of Confusion by Genesis, which is a music video.
Oh, with the rubber masks.
Yeah, oh, those are the puppets. That's what they were.
Oh yeah,
Spitting
yeah.
Image.
Like Reagan.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then just scrolling through Labyrinth and People Under the Stairs. Labyrinth. Yeah,
I've never seen
I
Labyrinth.
remember I terrified him and some other kids by saying there were goblins in the walls, just like in the film. So yeah, there you go. There were some comments. Chris Yu is on there making some
Hey.
hay. He mentioned a comment about my spectacular Spider-Man book, saying that Spider
Mm-hmm.
Banjo should be the villain in the next Spider-Man movie, which Chris will not go see.
I will not.
Anyway, back to my books, I suppose. Let me minimize
Yes,
this so
yes,
I can
yes.
kind of focus on what I was doing there. Okay, so there's nothing really of note other than those Sweet Spot books I told you I bought because I didn't want to dig. I never read
Mhm.
this, and I'm under the assumption it's not very good anyway, but I did pick up the Just Imagine Stanley Superman. I know, but I just figured, hey, I'll add it to the collection. It was a couple bucks.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I bought all those off the rack
Mhm.
when they were coming out, and they were not
Yes,
good.
I believe you 110%.
Yeah.
I was filling some holes here with an era that I am not fond of, despite it being, I believe, the best Superman title of all time, The Adventures of Superman.
Hmm.
So I grabbed a couple of these yet again for a
Mm.
dollar, but I needed them just to
Yeah.
keep it, fill up those
And that
holes.
one has the does that have the challenges of the unknown?
Indeed,
That's
yes, it has.
ugh.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, I bought an issue of Challengers a few probably about a month ago because it said the Chals meet the Doom Patrol, and but I mean it was still a Challengers book, so it was still something I'll never read.
Yeah, the whole Carl Kessel, Barry Kitson era. Yeah.
Mm.
Or Im Onen. Not very fond of that. What
Hmm.
else do I got in this stack? This is a cover I just love, and I already have a few covers of it. Copies of it,
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I said covers twice. See, that's how much I like it. But I'm not a huge patriotic kind of guy, and I know they've changed the slogan for Truth,
Hmm.
Justice, and the American Way to, I forget what did they change it to? Truth, Justice, and
I don't know,
whatever's just. It was something like that.
and not angering other
There you
people or
go. But even
something, right?
then, I'm not connected to that. It's not like it means anything in particular to me. Like where I'm like, oh, they're gonna keep it pro America. I'm like, whatever. But I just think it's a beautiful Jerry Ordway cover. So hey, yet again for like a dollar or two, coming home with me and adding it to the other three copies of that I already own.
Now, now, do you have books where you bought more than one Oh, now look at that.
Hmm.
Do you have books where you bought more than one copy because you just didn't think you owned it over and over and over and
Oh
over
yeah, yeah,
again?
yeah. Going back to what you were talking about in reference to that,
With the Blue
or
Beetle
skipping a
in
book.
reverse.
There
Yeah.
have been instances where I've done that, where I've been
Hmm.
like, no, I don't need that. I own it, and then I got home and I'm like, oh crap, and I
Yeah.
can't get back to the store fast enough. And
Sure.
recently there was a moment where there was a sale at a store that I don't really frequent too often because I think their prices are too high. It's a chain.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like half record shop, little comic area. I was gonna say half, but it's not even worth that kind of.
Just a
Just
corner.
like a corner, yeah. It's still okay. But anyway, long story short here, and I couldn't find the book. And it was like a buy
Mm.
one get one sale. I'm like, oh man, someone else
Ah.
snagged that. You son of a gun. It was an Action Comics I needed, not like
Mm.
yours with their fake folded cover or anything. But
Yeah. No, because the issue that's like the reverse Blue Beetle for me. There was an issue of a pre-crisis Wonder Woman where the Teen Titans showed up,
mm-hmm.
and every time I see it, I'm like, I need that one. I don't have it because I don't have a Wonder Woman list on my because I don't care about Wonder Woman.
Sure,
So I don't have a list of what Wonder Woman books I need. Handy. I have my spreadsheet, but it would take like 3 minutes to pull up on the phone.
mm-hmm.
But so I think I have like 3 or 4 copies of that one because it's just one I never realize I have until I get home and it's like, oh yeah, I already have it.
Okay. Well, CLZ has failed me from time to time as well. I'll tell you. I think. Well, it's operator error.
Mm.
Okay. Well, actually, I take that back. No, not all the time. All right, so sometimes I get that weird feeling of anxiety when I'm buying something and I have it in my stack, or I'm rushing to leave or something, and maybe I didn't do my due
Sure.
diligence in checking properly. But the
Hmm.
reason why I was about to give CLZ a small spanking on the buttocks is if you ever look into how they categorize Justice League International, it'll drive you insane.
Oh, is it broken
All
up? Is it
broken
like
up.
just Justice League, then Justice League
America,
America, then Justice League?
Justice League. Yeah,
Oh
dude. I'm
boy.
wondering if I should even look at it right now.
Oh,
And there have been times where I had all the issues when I was a kid, but I'm trying to rebuild. And
sure.
I have the
Of
trades, you know
course.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
I was like, I remember this. I think I own it. I think I do. And I'd check CLZ
Oh,
and
that
I'd be
must
like,
be
oh, I
annoying as
don't own it.
hell.
I can't believe I don't own this. I could have swore I did. And I got home and I'm like, I do
Mm.
already own this. Gosh darn it.
Do they break up like X-Men and Uncanny X-Men and stuff like that?
I have to look in particular on that one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Justice League International America, but it's still listed as Justice League International America, Justice League International America. Annual, that's to be understood.
Hmm.
Justice League Europe International, that's to be
Yeah,
understood.
because
Justice
Europe
League
changes to
International.
international too.
All right, so yeah, so they
Yeah.
have, yeah, it's just like four different things here.
Oy.
And it is tough, man, when you're trying to look into that. It's a
Mm.
pain in the keister.
Yeah, no
So
joke.
CLZ, you should fix that, please.
Yeah, throw them all into the volume there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's a little nutty, but alas, I
Hmm.
feel better.
Is there anybody who just wants international and like won't buy the America that leads into it or comes out of it?
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make much sense to
Yeah,
me either, but whatever. This is the world
yeah,
we live in, baby.
yeah.
This
It's
is
true.
the world we live in.
There you go, land of
Whoa,
confusion.
these are the
Yeah.
hand. Yeah, so
Where's the puppets at?
I'm a puppet for my
Sure.
employer. That's who I am. But anyway, that's all I had to say about that. Showing off some of the books and burdening my soul, as I mentioned, and yeah. So now we have open slate, Chris. I don't know what you want to talk
Hmm.
about or how you'd like to do it, but if you have any suggestions, feel free to say so right now.
Oh boy, you put me on the spot.
Indeed, I am, because my list of three
Uh,
things is already
Extinguished.
extinguished. It ran its course here. So, I mean,
Huh.
let me open
I
this up.
don't know.
Anything else you'd like to talk about? Ooh, Christopher, you did say can't
Hmm.
go wrong with Jerry Ordway. I'm going to give him a heart, I think, on that. No, I'm going to give him 100%. I think that meant something.
Whoop whoop.
There you go. But Jerry Ordway is my favorite Superman artist, so I like comments like that. When you agree with me,
He's pretty great.
that's when I
He's
like
pretty great.
something. So, yeah.
It's funny when you read like the old. I think it's the All Star Squadron where he's credited as Jerome Ordway,
Mm,
and I always have to do a double take. It's like oh yeah, Jerome is Jerry. Yeah.
I prefer the Ordster.
Yes. Yes. Let's see here. I suppose we could go into the babble. We do have a message from a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Um, if you want to do that, do you need any time to prepare?
Just give me like 1 second here. But yes, so you mentioned we have an email that's worth reading. Let me just get the stuff queued up here. And while I do that,
Hmm.
oops, I'm messing everything up on my end because I'm a sloppy mess. But guess what? Guess who's the best? Me, because
Who
now
dat?
it's up on the screen and you can read away, Kimasabi.
Whoa, very good, very good, very good. Okay, we got a letter here from our buddy Chris
There he
New,
is.
and this is from way back in the
Yes.
toward the
So
end of
he's
July. So
referencing the episode from 2 weeks
2 weeks
ago.
ago.
All right, let's keep that
Yes.
clear for anybody else out there. They're like, they didn't talk about that today. They didn't talk about
No,
that
no,
last week. So now we know what's going on here.
no. Hmm. Says hello, the Bada Bin Show. Congratulations on your 10th episode. You've reached your first milestone, and that's where I crap the bed. I'm looking forward to many, many more episodes to come. You're a destination viewing for me, but enough praise. Let's babble. I enjoyed the return of the Sweet Spots segment. Chris's tale of that long bike ride brought back memories of my own bike rides that ended in buying
Mm-hmm.
comics. When I was a youngster, 9, 10, or 11 years old, my mother would take me and my younger brother for bike rides at least once a week in the warmer months, just around the neighborhood, maybe a 20-block radius. These rides would always end at the F&M Market at the corner store about 2 blocks from our house for ice cream bars. They had a two-shelf newsstand right in front of the deli case, and at the bottom, almost hidden from view, they had comics, but only a single issue of each book. My mom would always let me get a comic if I asked, so most of my earliest comics came from those rides. In the late spring and early summer of 1983, I was able to get Justice League of America 213, 214, 215, and 216. It was the four-part Into the Microcosmos storyline, and it was the first time I was able to get and read every issue of a storyline. I had many random issues, sometimes a part one or two or three without the other parts, but this was my first complete story. Going there and looking for the next issue of JLA week after week was the beginning of my actually collecting comics. These books will always take me back to my preteen bike rides and that corner store. I love stories like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
Because, that's something, we have a lot of nostalgia for back in the day and the concept, as true as it was or not, of, every issue could be somebody's first, right?
Right.
It's kind of an oversimplification now. I think we ask for that now, but I don't know that it's even something that could be done. And if it was done, we probably wouldn't like it. But there was definitely something to it back then. But the idea of getting a full story is pretty neat. I came in with, I came into superhero comics with, the big X-Men redo in 1991. So full stories were like you'd get like X-Men 1, 2, and 3. That'd be your full story,
Sure.
or you can wait until you get to the crossovers and you get like the 12-pod Executioner song, and that's your full story. So it's like I think I took for granted the fact that, and I mean I went to the comic store. I wasn't going to the newsstand. I wasn't going to the pharmacy.
The
So
smoke shop.
the smoke shop, of course. Yeah, I did go there, just not
On the
regularly.
regular, sure.
Yeah, I mean my usual stop was Amazing Comics.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's a bit. It's one of those things I'm nostalgic for that I never lived.
Hmm.
You know, like I would read in the old fanzines that I'd come across, like where people would, especially in like New York City, they would know which books would be at each newsstand. So if they wanted their Jonah Hex, they would have to go to Fifth Avenue. They wanted their Justice League, they'd have to go 5 blocks down that way.
Hmm.
So like they would just constantly circle the city trying to fill their wants, their needs. Um, Something that sounds absolutely horrible, but also kind of quaint, and something that I almost wish I was part of. How about you? Do you remember your first full story?
Well, my first comic was something I talked about in the sweet spots there with the Incredible
Hmm.
Hulk Annual number 11, and that was a
Yeah.
standalone story that
Hmm.
you didn't really need to know much about before.
Sure.
And I don't want to kind of go back into it because I did talk about it in, quite an extensive manner during that
Hmm.
segment, but it had a bunch of the Marvel Universe in it, which as a young
Sure.
kid is super exciting.
Of course.
But for me, I think I'm more nostalgic about, okay, as you mentioned, the old saying, every comic is somebody's first, so you kind of want to
Yeah.
establish the ground rules and kind of it can get repetitive and old.
Razor sharp adamantium
There you go,
closed.
right?
Yeah.
You got to establish the fundamentals of the character every time out, no matter what. But
Hmm.
the stories or comics I'm most nostalgic about are the ones where I kind of just jumped in out of nowhere and I wasn't quite entirely sure what was going on, but that
But you weren't turned off.
no, it made me more
Yeah.
intrigued, more interested,
Hmm.
and that's when I turned to things like Marvel Saga or the handbooks
Sure.
of, and I
The
wanted to,
handbooks, the who's
yeah,
who's.
all
Yeah.
that, and I back issues back then was
Trading
yes,
cards. Yeah.
but much more difficult to find. But anything I could get my hands on, pre-internet and everything else, to feed my brain that information,
Of course.
I was addicted. I wanted more of it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so as far as like yeah, what was my first standalone story or something that was just a complete story? I can always cite my first, and maybe that's why it was so important too. You know what I mean?
Could be.
Because
Yeah, maybe if it was like a part two of four, it wouldn't have resonated or landed as it could have.
yeah, speaking of Back to the Future, had I not read Incredible Hulk Annual number 11 to start my journey, would you be holding a Polaroid that I'd be fading from right now, or
It's true.
my square would be turning I'd be turning into a ghost.
You might
Who
be.
knows, you know?
You might
But yeah,
be.
even then, just I know we said it quite a bit today, but like riding the bikes and going here. I remember
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh
hobby
yeah.
shop in my town. They moved to the next town over when they couldn't afford their rent
Hmm.
anymore, and they were in a flea market. And my
Hmm.
God, the fun we used to have, dude, traveling
Sure.
up there. And then there were also other comic vendors there and stuff. It was just like,
Hmm.
dude, that's so great. So much fun. And that's something I can never get enough of. Like, seriously, bottle it, whatever,
Oh
put it in
yeah.
a syringe. Hate to sound like a crazy drug person, but inject it into my veins. Crazy drug person. But anyway, you get my drift. Like digging and
Sure.
everything else like that is the thing that truly gets my blood a pumping, baby. And
Oh
remembering
yeah.
it, doing it, it's my Spanish fly.
I love that he mentioned here that there's, just one rack, one of each issue,
Mm-hmm.
like under the deli case.
That's
It
true too.
reminds
Yeah.
me, yeah, it reminds me of just seeing stuff just like that, even into the late 90s, when we moved out here to Arizona. I remember going to the supermarket,
Mm-hmm.
and they had one comic at the supermarket, one comic book, because I would go there and I'd get like the Wizard magazine because they'd have that, but they have one comic, and for some reason, you remember Marvel published a Quicksilver comic for like a
Yeah.
year? John Ostrander back around 97 or so.
Sure.
They had Quicksilver. That was the only comic book in their
Wow.
store. And every month it was the next issue of Quicksilver. I how why?
You know, speaking to Chris Yu's comment too, how he found like 3 issues of Justice League, was it?
Yeah, four.
4.
Yeah.
That's something I also have fond memories of because when I did go to the Chet Smoke Shop or Store
Hmm.
24, a lot of times they wouldn't be pulling these books when they didn't sell. So
Sure. They just put things in front
you
of you.
could buy 3 or 4 or 5,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
concurrent issues in a row for $1 each and be like, well, there you go. I got this cool story here.
Got the whole deal.
One fell swoop. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
yeah, those days were great. Holy
Oh yeah,
cow.
that's the old school waiting for the trade,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. If I wait just a couple more months, let these gather
Get
just
them
a wee
all.
bit more dust, I can have the
Hmm.
whole kit and caboodle from tip to tail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Just stick them behind the Archies, and no one's gonna ever
There
look at
you
them.
go.
Chris
Okay.
continues here. He says, I'm glad that you brought up the Clone Saga in the This Needs a Mulligan segment, because that would be my choice for a story that needed a do over. If the Bean Counters would have just stayed out of the way and let their story end when it was originally intended to, it would be looked at much better, in much better light today. And that is very, very true. It's funny that issue of Wizard that I pulled out here. It's from 1996, I believe. Let's see here. It is July 96. And a lot of the ads in here, there's actually a story about Peter Parker or Spider-Man 75 where they ended the Clone Saga. And it's written like a huge apology letter from I think it's Howard Mackey who writes it in the article, where it's like, oh, we're sorry that we dragged this on so long. If you're scared of Spider-Man, it's safe to come back. There's only going to be one. It's going to be the one you want it to be, but we can't say exactly yet. Just you're going to be happy with the result, basically. And as I'm flipping through it, I'm also seeing a bunch of ads for comic shops saying like, with all the comic shops closing, aren't you glad one's still open? Come to our store. And the timing of that, where like the bean counters were trying to just surge this clone saga at a time where shops are going out of business in record numbers, to the point where all of the ads for comic stores in this book are informed by the fact that all the comic shops are going out of business, is just such a comic book thing. It's like, do you tug the tail of the tiger? What do you do? how do you how do you do this? Just seems kind of interesting to me that so many, just how wrong-headed those bean counters actually were. And then again, I mean, they were just trying to inflate the stock prices, which we see didn't work out so well.
Does it ever change? I mean,
No, no, absolutely
that's the
not.
thing. Whether it's me or you talking about comics today, and we love a lot of books, but there's plenty enough that we
Sure.
complain about too. I
Hmm.
mean, sometimes I reference us and say we're like the two grumpy Muppets up in the rafters in the
Hmm.
theater. You know what I mean? Or at least it feels that way because we never seem to learn our lessons. And the people who don't
Nope.
learn those lessons are the people who are in charge. And the same
Yeah.
applies to your daily, everyday life. You may be in Walmart shopping and go, Jesus, can't they open more lines? Or
Hmm.
your boss is at work. They let that moron be in charge. You know what I mean? So no matter what it is, in every facet of everything, The wrong moves are continuously being made, and that will never,
Oh yeah.
ever, ever change.
Nope. They're not a what is it? They're not a bug. They're a feature. Is that what they
Okay.
say?
I never heard that one. That's new.
Yeah, they're a feature, not a bug.
Okay.
Back to
Yes,
Chris. He
please.
says modern decompression causes too many stories that would have been great 2 or 3 part stories to be stretched into lackluster 6 to 8 part tales just to be collected. That's what I asked you about the Dogs of War there, as I don't remember if the decompression virus had taken hold at Marvel just yet. Um, and I guess it hadn't at that point, or at least not in the Hulk books. But you know, that's another thing that's piggybacking off what you just said here. Not learning lessons. Decompression. Is there anything that can kill more excitement for a book than stretching it into to the point where like the climax doesn't matter anymore because you're more happy that the story's over than actually invested in how it ends. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, no, I follow you. It's like,
Like
please
there's too
God, like, put
many.
it out of its misery.
Yeah,
Old Yeller this story. Like, for real.
please.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like I remember, the it was Casada Gemis era Marvel where like they would start putting the titles of the stories on the cover and it would be like Captain America Ice Part 1 of 6.
Uh-huh.
It's like it's like it's okay. It's August, so I'm still going to be reading this in February.
Uh-huh.
Come on.
Mm.
And it was boring to begin
I
with.
gotta ask you something. This is completely off topic,
Hmm.
but you said Captain America
Sure.
Ice, so I'm very curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this month's previews, there were a lot
Uh-huh.
of trades that I was interested in. And one
Mm-hmm.
is like the Marvel Epics, right?
Sure.
And I have this is so tying into absolutely like the whole rewind read things. Streets of
Okay.
Poison. When Streets of Poison came out,
Okay.
that was Grunwald, Ron Lim. That was the height of when I
Yeah.
was reading Captain America as a kid, and I own still a few issues, scattershot. But man, I got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
love in retrospect for that story, despite on how good it may actually be or how well it is held up to this day. But they
Sure.
were releasing
Okay.
an Epic collection on it, and with a discount, it comes to like $31, whatever pre-tax.
All
And I'm so
right.
tempted into buying it, and then before I added it to my pre-order cart and hit,
Mm-hmm.
yes, here's my credit card and everything else, I stopped myself and
Sure.
went, it collects something like 15 issues. If I went to the back issue bins today and all those back issues were there, they're probably $1 a piece.
Oh, at
You know what I
most.
mean? Is
Yeah.
it worth it to spend the
Oh yeah.
extra $15 or what have you to actually have it so I can put it on my bookshelf? And
Mm-hmm.
then even then beyond all that, I remember it being good.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really good though? I don't know,
Mm.
but would you purchase something like that? That's a question I posed to you. For one,
Would I buy Streets of
well,
Poison?
no, 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 not necessarily Streets
Or
of Poison, but let's say
oh,
again, tying it to the rewind reads and
sure.
everything else, something that you remember it being pretty good. They're
Okay.
soliciting it today as a collected edition, but it's not worth very much as individual issues. But you kind of were like, well, they put it together. It's going to be in a little package. Bing, bang, boom. Would you spend $30 on something like that, or would you say no?
No.
Okay.
No, but if I found it at a used bookstore for like 5 or 10, maybe.
Okay, all right.
But I would not. I wouldn't even spend with the discount because DCBS is partnered with in stock trades, so usually everything's about half off anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even. No, that's way too much for something like that.
Well, those epic collections are pretty hefty books,
Yeah, they're thick. They're thick
Yeah,
books.
yeah, and
Yeah.
there's been a couple I passed on before that I've regretted after because after
Mm.
market, I've seen them,
Oh, they're
yeah, jump up
ridiculous.
in
Yeah.
value. I'm like, whoa, I should have bit at the whatever $30 price tag that I bought at.
Sure.
Because now, and it's like again, I already own the issues or I own a few of the
Sure.
issues, and I could just hunt for them. I get it, but there's something about it, and it's something that I also would just never have considered as short of a period of time as maybe even 5, 10 years ago doing that. I'm
Hmm.
like, I already have the issue. Why am I,
Sure.
Dogs of War? I own all the issues. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Why am I buying the trade?
Yeah.
Ease of use. I don't have to yet
Yeah.
again unbury it.
I
You know,
I did that with Doomsday Clock not too long
yeah.
ago.
So
You
I don't know,
know.
but I'm tempted. I did pre-order a
Mm-hmm.
couple things, but that was cut from the list. Same thing. There is DC is releasing. They're not showcases anymore. They're oh geez, I forget what they call them. But one of them is DC.
Oh, like the mini ones.
Well,
Yeah.
DC
Like
events,
the.
and it's like the first half of
Mhm.
Zero Hour.
I saw
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
I have Zero Hour, but I don't have all the tie-ins. And then
Okay.
the book with the discount was gonna be like $25, and it's still in my cart. And I'm like, well, maybe I should
Hmm.
have it just so I can be kind of like completionist and everything else. And I'm stopping myself, and I'm going, yeah, but was the Teen Titans tie-in necessarily all that great? Is it worth spending?
No, probably not.
Exactly. And should I just make it part of my hunt to track down
But
those issues instead?
something like that feels more trade prone to me, where it's like if
Mm.
I probably have, if I don't have all of the issues of Zero Hour, I have most of them, but they're all with their own titles. So if I wanted to actually read them, I would have to go into every single DC long box I have
Very
and
true.
yank out a number zero and then the number whatever the hell that's the actual Zero Hour tie-in.
Okay.
So to have it all in one thing, I might bite on that.
Okay.
You
Then I
know,
might too.
because I mean the Captain America books, like that's you can go to your Captain America long box and it's like, okay, you pull out those 15 books, you got it, you're done.
Or, as I mentioned, you can hunt them down on
Yeah,
the super
exactly.
cheap.
On the cheap. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The because I made the Grunwald run a one of my priorities like a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and lost interest in it because it was very it was uneven. But yeah, I found most of those very cheap,
Yeah.
like ridiculously
What are you
cheap.
selling me,
Because
buddy? That's what I keep. I'm turning to you for advice. Whether it was the whole
hmm,
cheating scandal with my digging to now even what I'm going to be purchasing via trade.
mhm.
Just cause I need someone to validate how I feel and what I'm going to do because dude, I second guess myself all the time.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't use me as any
Oh,
sort of
come on. I
barometer.
got to use somebody.
Uh,
And you're here right
there are
now.
better out there.
You're here.
That is true. That
Yeah.
is my strength. That is my one strength. I am here
Now.
right now.
Yes, exactly. All right. I'm sorry
Um,
for
no,
deviating
no,
and everything else. So,
that's what we do.
yes.
That's
If
what
you
we
want to get
do.
back to Chris Yu.
Back. Let's get back to Chris
Okay.
Yu. He says the ephemera segment on comics book was very interesting to me. I had no idea that Mouse had any connection to Marvel Comics. I wonder if the series would have been different if Marvel had published it. Probably.
Yes.
I'm not. No, you know, when Shooter took over, he tried to do the olive branch to some folks to do their creator-owned stuff at Marvel. Um, he tried with Sergio Aragonis, or however you say his name,
Mm-hmm.
to put Gru over there, and Gru went to Pacific instead of Marvel, but eventually he came over to Marvel Epic.
Yes.
Um, he tried getting Frank Miller to do Ronin for Epic, and Miller didn't trust him that he'd keep the rights, so he didn't do it. So who knows, really? Um, I don't know Jim Shooter, so he might have been just trying to get people on board. Had he had a chat with Spiegelman when he came in? Who knows? It would have been if Spiegelman believed him or not, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. I don't know if that would have affected the story necessarily. The story was what the story was, so who knows? But I did find that interesting as well. When I flipped through that magazine or that book the first time and saw Mouse, it was just like, damn, didn't expect that. Back to Chris. I'm going to need some help from Dave this week. I recently watched a video discussing how post apocalyptic wasteland movies like Mad Max are just sci fi westerns. They both follow the same basic structure. So, the post apocalyptic Hex series has been on my Bronze Age reading list for a while now, and I got to thinking of the fact that a Western character was tossed into a wasteland setting and how the stories of the two different eras, how the stories of the two eras are different compared to one another. I want to read some good Jonah Hex and the Old West stories to be able to compare them to Hex. I was planning on starting with issue 75 or so with the original Jonah Hex series that ended before Hex began, but if Dave has recommendations for something better to get a feeling for Jonah Hex in the West, I am all ears.
Wow. Okay, so let me just understand this better before I throw anything out there
Mhm.
because he wants to read,
Compare and contrast from the post apocalyptic
but he
Hex.
wants to read that Hex.
He does.
Then his idea isn't bad. For me to
Mm.
say, okay, let me just start with this. Something I love about that Michael Fleischer Hex series is
Uh huh.
it's connected, but much like you would have seen in 50s or 60s TV, where it's very episodic and almost akin to what we were saying about everything being a single story. Hex is like that.
Sure.
So you could pick up any
Hmm.
issue of Hex pretty much. I mean, there's a few that have a cliffhanger from the previous issue, but you can really go in raw or blind and pick up what's
Hmm.
going on really, really quick. And that's something that
Hmm.
really was initially the appeal I had to the book when I started getting
Hmm.
into it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a Western guy. I don't watch Westerns in general. There's been a few that I've really enjoyed. The English on Amazon Prime, anybody? Very, very good. I think I recommended it to you as a matter of fact, and you didn't watch it.
I don't watch things.
You do. You do. Come on now.
Not movies.
But for him to start at 75, I don't think. Okay, what I'm trying to allude to here is 75 is a great number, but you don't specifically
Hmm.
need to start at 75 to understand how that led into the first issue of the post-apocalyptic Hex.
I think he just wants to compare the tones and the way that the structure and Hex's relatability in the Old West as compared to the Wasteland.
Okay, well, I was going to say, as far as the tonality, it's kind of the same. And I think that's,
Hmm.
credit to Fleischer, who just put
Hmm.
his stamp and impact on the character that you can pretty much take Hex, put him in any different situation, and you're still getting the same characteristics, the same personality, the
Okay.
same attributes, all this stuff, because yet again, Fleischer just was that character inside and out. I think personally, and if you want to do it on the cheap, yet again, referring back to like the 75, interesting thing that happens with comics in general, right? So the initial start of a series, those back issues, depending on the era, but Hex being, late 70s, early 80s, those tend to be a little bit pricier. Same thing
Hmm.
applies when you get to the end of a series because the print runs are lower,
Less prints. Yeah.
the series is coming to a close, the readership has dwindled. So those things, even in good condition, can be a little bit more pricey and harder to
Hmm.
find. So if you really wanted to start, you could pick and choose anywhere you wanted. Let's say from Hulk, I almost said Hulk, Hex 25 on, up until those later issues when you hit the 90s. Pick up and go, and you were going to get those same vibes. That if you don't like the vibes, despite the scenarios and situations and environment being different, you're not going to
Hmm.
like post-apocalyptic Hex.
Yeah. Are there any like seminal Jonah Hex stories you could recommend to him? Like, are there any that immediately jump out to you as like, okay, this is what I think of with Jonah Hex. This is Hex perfection.
No, because I look at it more as a whole.
Hmm.
And that's yet again where I'm giving credit to Fleischer, where I couldn't
Hmm.
say to you,
So there's no
I
standout.
couldn't, well, there are a couple issues that are a little bit better than others, but at the same time, I wouldn't be able to say to you, okay, volume one, Jonah Hex number 38 is better than 42 for this reason and that reason. Like, it
So
is,
like, would any of them be a sweet spot book for you? Is there a single issue of Hex or a single two or three issues of Hex in a row that would be like a sweet spot
the,
for you that you could
some of the later ones in the
turn Chris
80s,
you on to?
there's some cool stories with the Gray Ghost that I particularly was
Hmm.
fond of. I can't remember the number of the issue right now, but this is going to be a funny thing. And you're going to find this very weird, but this is Dave, this is me, summed up in one big lump. There is an issue of Jonah Hex, and God, I want to look it up right now because I want to say it's like 87. Maybe it is. And if I'm
Hmm.
right, someone owes me a nickel. Where there is a prostitute on a bed, and Jonah Hex is not on the cover.
You said 87?
Yes. Is that the one with the prostitute on the bed?
Let's see. Yes, it is.
Ah! Someone owes me a frickin' who's on the nickel? Andrew Jackson.
Will this woman be the death
Yes,
of Jonah
and I
Hex?
love that cover because Jonah Hex. I think you might see his hand or something, or in the corner. But
You see him
in the
he's in
mirror.
the his hand is in the reflection in the
Okay,
mirror.
great.
Yeah.
And
He's opening the
and I'm
door.
sorry for bringing this up because it doesn't really have much to do with story wise. But the reason why I said it's so me is because I
Hmm.
love covers like that. I love, I don't know, like those weird kind of offbeat things where it's like, okay, this logo is a little bit off or curved when it's normally
Hmm.
straight, or this is where the logo changed, or all those random things.
Sure.
But as far as stories go, yeah, like I said, there's a nice little run there, and they are connected with the Gray Ghost because not only that, the Gray Ghost kid gets involved later, and I want to say those were in the 70s. But I guess I'm going to stick to my guns, yet again, pun intended, with Jonah Hex,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm not going to commit to saying this one, whether it's All Star Western, Jonah Hex, this is the. Okay, like Swamp Thing, I can say Swamp Thing number 56 is one of the best comics I ever read.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, just pick up and go. Pick up
Yeah,
and go
and
wherever you want.
if I could add something
Yes.
here to Chris, you here, don't start with 75 because that's a part two.
Oh, okay.
So start with 74
Well, no,
if you're gonna
not
if you're
necessarily.
gonna do it.
I think part 75 is going to be fairly easy to pick up anyway, despite
But it's the second part of the bloody
it,
saga of Railroad
it
Bill.
doesn't matter. Trust me, it doesn't
But don't
matter.
you want to know about Railroad Bill?
You're going to get plenty. Dude, I'm willing to guarantee you, and I don't remember 75 off the top of my
Okay.
head very well, but, and I probably have it in this box right behind me because I was organizing my Jonah Hex not too long ago, but it does a great job. Fleischer does a great job of recapping what happened, whether it's a character's narrative,
Mm-hmm.
flashback scene, whatever. And that's, yet again, the beauty of it. And why I'm just like, you could just basically start anywhere, and you should.
And you can tell that the DC Wiki editors do not give a crap about Jonah Hex
Why?
because there's nothing. There's nothing here. Featured characters, Jonah Hex. Supporting characters,
What
blank.
about
Antagonist,
El
blank.
Papagayo? There's nothing about El
No,
Papagayo?
Railroad Bill. Where's Railroad Bill at?
Yeah, well, there you go. And
And
actually,
they don't care about this one.
Fleischer is. I just gave him like all this credit in the world. Like you can start anywhere. All of Fleischer's stories are very, very, and they are very solid. All of them. I think it was issue 6. David Michelini, whose name I just mispronounced, with the Sin
Hmm.
Eater. Was it 6 or was it 12? I'm freaking. I sound like I'm such a moron right now. That issue, fun enough, was actually also very good and had a very striking cover. But yes, Chris.
Jonah Hex number 6 is Michael
Okay,
Fleischer.
so maybe it was 12. This is gonna be the one with the Sin Eater, and that was a fill-in issue.
David.
What's that?
That was Peter David.
No, it's not Peter
I'm
David.
thinking about Spider-Man.
No, no, no.
He had the Sin Eater in Spider-Man during the death of Jean DeWolf.
But anyway, my point is this, and I'm gonna solidify it, and we can move on because
Okay.
Chris, you're listening to me right now. If you go to a shop, or actually, he doesn't even. I think he does digital, right?
Yes.
Anything that's
So you
cheap,
can just go on the app.
anything you want,
Yeah.
you could pick up at 68, 12, 2, whatever.
Or just read Rawhide Kid.
No, don't do that. Just jump in, man,
okay.
and you're gonna, dude. Here's the thing. Once you do that, you're gonna understand exactly what I'm talking about. I probably sound like a maniac right now, and I'm sorry for that. But when you know, and you will find
There you
out.
go.
So go from there.
Okie dokie. So any way you want.
There you go.
Chris,
Any way you want it. That's the way you need it.
Yeah. Any way you want it. Love the unboxing segment. I like seeing the variety in the comics you buy. I've been hearing good things about the Ghost Machine books from multiple sources. Still not enough to get me to look at one, but my curiosity is piqued. And you need to keep that Zosky flyer for the ephemera segment on episode 100. So Ghost Machine, he's interested, just not interested enough
Right.
just yet. Maybe one of these days. Those Jason Todd Batman books are making me jealous. My wife asked me what I wanted for Christmas this week, and I told her if she could get DC to release a pre-crisis Jason Todd omnibus, that would be great. Not holding my breath, though. Also, good luck with that Huntress series. I tried to reread it a little while ago and gave up after the first couple of issues. I think it was drawn on the same paper that John Byrne used for his Namor series. And, I have that whole Huntress run now, and it looks interesting, but I don't know that I'm going to ever read it. And I think we've talked about the pre-crisis Jason Todd omnibus on NML Crossing, how fun that would be, how interesting that would be, and how unlikely that would ever be. The Jason Todd from pre-crisis was basically Dick Grayson. He wasn't the tire stealing, maybe pushing a guy off the roof sort of jerk that he would become post-crisis. So, yeah, I'm not holding my breath either. Chris continues. That Justice League variant was part of an attempt to increase newsstand sales among younger readers. That's why it has word balloons on the cover. It was only available in a limited area, mostly in Southern California. Keep a lookout for Fury of Firestorm 61 variant with that same Superman logo. It's the only other comic from this newsstand scheme. And I did look for that a few times this weekend to see if I could track it down anywhere, and I couldn't find that Firestorm one anywhere.
Right.
Um, it's funny when I looked at that Wizard. I checked I never checked the price guide in Wizard, unless I'm doing a project, and I checked to see if that Justice League variant was listed, and it was. It had a $60 price tag back in 1996, or at least that's the Wizard rate. So that was kind of interesting. Let's see. I saw the All In announcement and immediately thought that Batman is All Elite. That's a reference to a wrestling company that has to announce anybody who comes to them with a hashtag. It's very current year. It's also very tiring.
Ooh.
He says the fact that Wonder Woman is holding a Liefeldian-style sword makes us feel like the 90s are back. They should fit in very well with the return of speculators, just like we had in the 90s. And yeah, I have that previews. I flipped through it and saw. When the New 52 started, it was supposed to be like this new thing, right? I mean, it's in the title, new, but it really felt like Image 1992.
What's that?
I did when the New 52 started, it felt like Image from 1992. I mean, I have this stupid what is it, Hawk and Dove here. It's like, what year was this made? I mean, would you know?
No, I have no idea. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like this has like a 2012. Oh no, December 2011. It's like this could be 1992, 1993.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels very out of date.
Sure.
And these what is it? These Absolute books kind of give me the similar vibes as that, where they feel like I don't know who they're looking for.
Okay.
They found us, and that's about it. But yeah, I don't know how.
Hey, real quick, I just want to mention,
Yeah.
I was completely and utterly wrong with the Jonah Hex fill-in issue. It wasn't 6,
Okay.
it wasn't 12, it was 14.
I didn't. That was my next guess.
Okay, there you go. All right.
That was my next guess. Back to Chris here. We have one more bit. He says, so we're all proud of our favorite books, but I want to know if you have any guilty pleasure comics.
Ooh.
Something that you love that isn't considered very good by fandom at large. Mine is the New Defenders era of the Defenders. That's the team based out of Angel's House in Colorado. For some reason, I love that era, even though I've never met anyone else who cares for it. And that was actually, when I was doing the Essential X-Lapsed, that was probably my second most ambitious failure, where I was going to do every single X-Men appearance. So I went out and I filled in my entire New Defenders era, since half the team were X-Men, Iceman, Beast, and Angel. And I read through some of them and I enjoyed them quite a bit, but yeah, there was a project brewing for that. It just never came to pass. Do you have any guilty pleasures?
I'll have to think about that. I was just thinking about New Defenders because it's not a guilty pleasure. But as a kid, I thought it was a really cool title because it had Gargoyle in it. I was like, Gargoyle and the Angel and this cast of characters is pretty cool,
yeah.
man, because you think of Defenders as, well, the original lineup is what, Silver Surfer, Hulk,
Doctor
Strange. And then later on you get Nighthawk, you get Valkyrie,
Ghost Rider.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, man, so I can see why. And yeah, it's not known as a great book.
No.
Because for me right now, initially, just off the top of my head, something that I think is a guilty pleasure that obviously would have to be something, as he mentioned, that not everybody else enjoys or gives a lot of credence or credit to. And I don't know, man, because, okay, the first thing that pops in my head, that I consider it like broccoli. For some people, initially, they don't like it, but then it grows on them. It's something that I've liked from the onset or get-go, and we've talked about ad nauseum. Jeff Purv's version of the Hulk. He's very inker dependent, yet there's some about his artwork, man, that people just don't like, and I've always really, really enjoyed, like the meatiness of it, the thickness of the Hulk, and everything else. But as far as a series or a book, I'm gonna have to think a little bit further on that because I don't want to blurt something out and feel dumb about it.
Yeah, no,
now.
I think this could be a fun
Mm.
conversation. Off the top of my head,
Oh,
Gen
there you
13.
go, Gen Zine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Gen 13. I'll be the first to say it's not very
Uh
good,
huh.
but I don't know. It's comfortable, so it is kind of a guilty pleasure, I
Yeah.
guess.
And it also probably deserves a mulligan, right? Maybe a do
They
over.
tried giving it a mulligan with Chris Claremont,
Oh, I
which made it
know.
even worse. And then they tried giving it another mulligan with Gail Simone, which was somehow even worse than that.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with some parameters
Yeah.
too, as far as if we make it into
Mm,
like a segment in the future, because I just mentioned artwork. Does it have to be
sure,
story? Does it have to be art? Does it have to be the whole package?
for
What would it
sure.
have to be? But yeah, that's a good one, and I don't want to think too hard on it right now because I'm gonna start saying
We'll
weird
get to it.
stuff. But yes, we will get to it, guaranteed,
Hmm.
and it will not be New Defenders.
But that is the end of Chris Yu's
All right,
email.
and he actually thanked me for the Jonah Hex advice in the chat, and I'm like, I
Oh,
didn't really
good.
give you any advice. I told you read whatever the hell you want.
Well, some people just need the validation,
I
right?
didn't give you a seminal issue. Maybe that's what you were looking for. I was a little confused by the question, as I seem like I always am when it comes to these emails. When someone,
We're on the fly.
yeah, I dig, but like someone might ask me something specific, and I'm like, I go this way, I go that, I zig, I zag. I don't know.
As for the time, you tell them how to make a watch.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. But yeah, yet again, in certain cases, I don't have your normal. Everything's a shade of gray. Okay.
There you go.
And that's how you rock and roll with that. Just I don't know, man. That post-apocalyptic hex, I just did not. I don't vibe with it very strong. So I think it's weird. Like,
It has that weird Giffen art.
well, that was later. Like I said, it had
Yeah,
Teixeira
as
there
the
for a bit
tail end.
too.
Yeah.
I think the most popular issue of that might have been. I want to say it was issue 8 when they came up with like the alternate future.
Batman.
Yes, that's like the
Yeah.
most sought after issue of that whole thing.
That's the only one that's
And
worth
it's
anything.
not a
Yeah.
good comic. It's really not. And
No.
much as I keep saying Fleischer's
And
great, that one wasn't his strongest. Oops.
it wasn't even like a great idea.
No, but we have to have Batman in there. That's what we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's true.
totally.
It is true.
I do. I'm gonna say that I do have a couple issues. Maybe not series, but issues
Mhm.
that are in fact guilty pleasures. So yes.
Okay. Yeah, we could definitely. You gotta go dig up your trouble issues.
No,
So.
no trouble. Trouble
No.
is a nightstand book only. The early adventures of Aunt May. And who else was with her in that book, Chris?
Mary Parker, or what's her face? Peter Parker's mom.
Oh, okay. So they're both up to
Yeah.
shenanigans together.
Yeah, because like Aunt May was actually the one who was pregnant, but then they gave it to whatever Mary Parker, and yeah, the illusion there was that Aunt May was Peter
You know
Parker's
way
mom.
too much about this already.
I did a whole episode
There you
on it.
go. You know so
Yeah,
much. One sentence was too much.
that's what
That's
we
it.
did. We did our 5-part Crisis on Infinite Earth series, and then as a palate cleanser, we did Trouble,
Mm,
from the sublime to the ridiculous, or
yeah.
the ridiculous-er.
Yep. That's like cleansing your palate with turpentine. That's what you guys.
And that's, we talk about like when you flip through the bins and you see something that catches your eye. Anytime you see an issue of Trouble,
Hmm.
it catches your eye for the wrong reasons, because it's like a young girl in a bikini on a photo cover,
Yeah.
and it's like, and like it takes me back to like whenever the hell it came out originally. It's like I actually bought that. Like that was in my stack of books I handed to someone who scanned it. Gross.
Well, I take pictures of it every time I see it and send it to you. So how perverted and
And
weird
I,
is
I
that?
bought the hardcover because it was $1.
Oh man,
But
that you can't live
yeah,
down. Holy.
no, it's on my shelf forever.
Whoops. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did see a few of them when I was digging the other day, which I meant to mention on the air here, because I was sending you like the play-by-play,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe there's so many damn Star Trek
Yeah.
comics. I had no idea there were that many from like every company in the world published Star Trek, and they're all in the 50-cent bin. It's like I couldn't believe it. It was Legion, of course, and Warlord.
Hmm.
Oh my God, Warlord.
You didn't find that issue I
Like
was telling you about, the cat issue, did you?
I already
Oh,
have
okay.
most of Warlord.
All right.
Yeah, I already have most of it, but just the fact that like you get to that, like the Warlord box, and you lose all hope as you're digging. Like you're like, oh, okay, cool, different stuff, different stuff. Warlord, warlord, warlord. Oh no, 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 this box is dead. No, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right. Oh man, the pain,
It's
dude.
true.
Like when you want to dig and you want to dig so bad, and that's the thing. Like I told you, it's my bread and butter. I love it more than anything on the
Yeah,
face of the earth, other than my family, of course.
of course.
I love digging too. But anyway, when you go and you look at the box and you, what do we got here, baby? Legion, Legion, Legion.
Legion.
Oh God, talk about
Hmm.
taking the wind out of one's sails. And you know,
Oh yeah.
there's something for everybody. You love Legion, more
Sure.
power to you. I'm glad somebody digs it. But man, oh
Hmm.
man, that hurts.
Oh yeah, and I mean this is kind of stepping on your fun here, but like when I find the magazine boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, here's some comics journal, and then I get to Mad, and I get to Mad again, and I'm like, oh crap, the rest of this box is Mad, and sure enough, Mad, 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 Mad. It's like I don't want that. I just want the comic stuff.
So the owner of the shop that I go to, the one that I had
Hmm.
my indiscretions with this week, he has another
Your
location.
liaison.
Yes. He calls the secret headquarters, which is all back issues, nothing new, no whatever. And
Sure.
it was by invite only, like kind of limited op.
That was the one like saying it's like in an office park or something
Yes,
you said, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Actually,
Okay.
I shouldn't say invite only. He let people know about it. Anybody could go in, but I mean, you wouldn't know it
Hmm.
unless you were aware of it.
Unless you were there at the store. Yeah.
And he has a lot of mad paraphernalia and stuff that was really cool. And I asked if he was for sale, and he said no. And I
Hmm.
haven't stopped thinking about that, like the cardboard cutouts he had and everything else. But last time I was in his shop, he was like, "Oh yeah, the last one we had at the secret headquarters, which I missed. I was working that weekend." He's like, "I had like boxes full of mad." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "They're not here." He's like, "No, they're in the secret headquarters, and I sold a lot of them." And I'm like, "You kidding me?" He's like, "No," and I'm like, "So I didn't go that weekend. For one, I'm broke too. For two, I'm working, and for three, I didn't even notice the email invite until like the last day of the sale."
Ah.
But even if I had seen the email ahead of time, I would have been like, one and two would have applied. I'm broke and I'm
Sure,
working,
sure,
so.
sure.
But to not be able to dig through that mad
Mhm.
gnaws at me. You know what I mean? Even if it was stuff I already owned or stuff I wasn't really super interested in, or an era I wouldn't. I don't know, man. I would
Sure,
have left with something.
of
So for
course.
you to dig in the mad and be like, "Oh Jesus, mad," I'm like,
Oh yeah.
this is an illness. This is an ailment
It,
that you need cured. All right.
yeah, as I'll get to, and then like occasionally we had different cover, but it'll be cracked. And it's like I don't want that either.
Yeah, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
Come
It's
on.
like give me comics journal, give me comic scene, give me amazing heroes.
See, this is why you need to dig with me. Because if I was with you at that point in time, I'd have been like, "Oh," I would
Oh
have
yeah.
pushed you
I just be
aside.
like, there you
Yeah,
go.
I'd have been like, "Get out of my way. Let me see what they got there, baby."
Oh yeah. Everywhere I go, man, there's tons. If you ever make it out to Arizona,
Mm,
you gotta
too
bring an
hot.
extra bag.
Too hot.
Well, we have a beautiful winter.
Mm, I'm sure.
Beautiful winter.
Well, Chris, I do think we need to hit the road fairly soon. It's been a great
I
reunion.
think so. I think
I
so.
would like to add, talking about subscriptions and subscription books and folds, that I still have, and I'm wondering if you have any of these. When you had a
Hmm.
subscription, or at least I know when I did, they would have the backing boards and they'd have an image of like Eric Larson's Spider Man on them with your address. And I
Mm,
still have a few of
okay.
those. Do you have any?
Interesting. I never had a subscription to a comic.
Okay, then maybe I should bring those for an
Yeah.
ephemera segment, dig those
You
out.
should. Definitely.
Because,
Definitely.
those are probably from like 99 or so. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's not something you see every day.
Yeah, I almost forgot about bringing that up, but it just popped into my head when I'm like, let's get out of here. But
Yeah.
before we go, Dave has one final thought. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Beautiful.
So anyway, but it was a great time to be with you. A
Hmm.
great reunion was had. Some
True
great
that.
comics talk here and some finds and everything else. So it's been a
Oh
blast,
yeah.
and hopefully we can do it next week with all these segments in tow because we got ideas up the Yahoo here for next
We
time out.
do. Yin yang.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you got that right. So let's incorporate those, make it happen. We get an entire week to research and read and make it
We
so.
do.
But until
Absolutely.
then, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to watch our humble program today. I appreciate it. Virtual hugs for all of you. You rule, I drool. I thank you so very much. And If you weren't here for the live stream, it's cool. We're on, in perpetuity. We're on the internet via the YouTube channel, and you are always free to reach out to us, badabinshow@gmail.com. And maybe you can ask Chris if he is truly, in fact, wearing Zubaz below the waist. You know?
Could be.
All right. Chris, what do you have to add?
The world may never know.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? Nobody knows.
Of the Zubaz pants.
Is Chris... Oh, geez. Hold on. This is Bada Bin After Dark.
This is true.
All right. So...
No, I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, yet again...
Apologies again for missing last time and for any ambient hammering that we heard.
Next week, it'll be a much cleaner affair, right?
Maybe.
All right, then.
Maybe.
Adios, everybody. See you next time.
See ya.